Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So, good evening. How is everybody? If you're new to the channel, welcome. Hello. My name is Tanya, TitaniumBuilt, whichever you want to call me. I'm going to just do a quick thing real quick. I was trying to do this before I came up. Just wanted to make sure it was on. Yep, we're good to go. Awesome. Can't beat that. So, if you missed the live that we did about, I don't know, an hour ago, we did a live. So if you want to check that one out, you can, but they did get a verdict in the Alex Murdaugh double homicide trial. The trial that he was convicted. He was found guilty of murdering his wife and his child. So if you guys want to check that out, we literally got on the live right when they were making the announcement. So the judge sent the jury back about 3 hours before the verdict. So they did the closing arguments yesterday for the prosecution. Today was the defense's turn. They decided to, take their good old time, which we kind of assumed that they would. I thought that they were going to lose. I would have fallen asleep. So somebody did. Somebody did fall asleep, I heard. You'll hear later in the live with Nancy, another juror had to be, told to they were relieved of their duties per se. They were caught, I guess, talking about the case. So, and I guess from what I've heard is that it might have been the defense might have been swaying them. Let me turn my camera on. There I am. The defense might have been like swaying like that juror. So maybe it's a good thing that juror was gone. So I did want to start off with that. I do want to ask you guys for your opinion before we get started on our live tonight. So if you're one of those people and you're like, I don't want to give this girl my opinion, then just come back in about 5 minutes and I'll be done with your time. So basically, your girl needs glasses. I should be wearing glasses all the time, but I don't. I'm really supposed to wear them all the time. I'm never supposed to be without, because if I'm without my glasses, if let's say, something flies into my eye, it could damage my prosthesis, and then that's a lot of money that I'm out. So I don't like going to the eye doctor to get a prescription made for me. I'm one of those people, if I can get it done at home, I can get it done at home. So with Warby Parker, you can do that. So this isn't like a sponsored video, but I wanted to show you how cute the boxing was because it was really cute. And I just got 5 pairs to try on. So I wanted to see if you guys liked any of these because you guys are looking at me the most, you and Vincent. So I figured I would try them on really quick and then you guys can give me your yay or nays because I need help. And hello, everybody in the chat. I saw that we have a lot of good people in tonight, like per usual. And it's going to be a really good live tonight. I've got a lot of stuff scheduled for you guys. So they send you, if you guys are ever interested, they do send you like a little try-on hand booklet. It tells you kind of how to do it. I don't read instructions, so we're just going to go off what I was seeing. So basically, they come individually wrapped. Like, how cute is that? I did take off the the first piece of tape just so I could open them easier, so I can get them on easier, but they're self-adhesive. So I'm just going to, I'm going to try them on one at a time because they're all packaged with their, with the name and the description on them. So this is the first pair, and I'll hold them up. Oh, those ones are already dirty. I think I can see something on there. They probably don't send you brand new ones every time. You probably get somebody else's, but okay, so this is option 1. Won't leave them on too long, but I think these ones aren't too bad. I like these actually. They're different. The shapes are different. They kind of go to your face. So those I do like. I'm not going to put them back in the plastic though right now because that'll be too much time. And then these are the second pair. So that site is Warby Parker, and you can get 5 pairs of glasses or sunglasses sent to you, prescription, and then you just send back. You'll send them all back, and then you keep separate the pairs or the pairs that you want to keep, and they start at $95 and then they go up from there. I think they go up to like $149. If you buy more than one pair, you get 15% off. They should get me a code. These are really light feeling. I like them. You can tell that other people have tried these lenses on because they're like scratched. Like, these are cute though. See, I hope I don't like all of them. And that would be a problem, wouldn't it? I normally can never find glasses I like. I normally don't look good in them. They do have contacts. They do, Ray. I saw that. I can't wear contacts because of, well, I guess I could, but I don't know if it would go, the color would go on the prosthesis or not. And then these ones are just a clear pair. Because you can never go wrong with clear. I have actually a pair of blue light ones that are clear, but blue light, I can't wear them and do a live. It makes the glares too bad. And these ones are like a little bit larger, I think. I don't know. Why am I feeling all of them? Why am I liking them? I'm liking every pair. Oh, I bet those are cute, Ray. Light pink ones from Coach. I bet those were cute. See, I like went into stores. I'm just not good at going in and like, yeah, no, they won't protect with a prosthetic. But like I would wear contacts if I could change my eye color. I wanted to kind of do that one time. Well, when I lost my eye, I wanted to change my eye color. I was like, oh, look, it would be perfect time because my mom had beautiful blue eyes. My dad had brown. And I always wanted blue eyes. And so I was like, well, what if I got my prosthesis and it was blue and then I just put a contact in my real eye? But they were like, putting contacts in it's not like unsafe, but it's not the safest when you're only working with one eyeball. So they were like, let's not do that. So they just wanted me to stick with glasses. These ones, I don't know. I like those too though. Shoot, I like them all. Okay, yeah, we're just going to have to buy them all. I'm just kidding, but we're just going to have to buy them all. I Buy Direct has a good, oh, I didn't know that. Super cheap. Yeah, those ones looked a little big, didn't they? Those ones were a little bigger. These ones are like the ones that I really liked when I saw them on the website, but I'm not really into like metal frames, but I think that these ones are titanium. And if they are, then I'm just going to get them. But they're smaller. And they're crooked looking. I feel like I'm crooked in these ones. Yeah, I don't like these ones. Yeah, okay, so the last two weren't my favorites. But the first three were pretty cute. Okay, we'll have to like make it down to... We'll shimmy them down to like maybe... Well, the last three, or the first three were cute. But man, that's a good idea though. You liked those last ones? I don't know. I felt like they were kind of funky on my face. But it could be just the ones that they sent. Maybe if they were a little bit larger. Actually, I do like them now that I put them back on. Man. Maybe the third ones, the clear ones, Be Happy said. I'm going to try those again. These would go with everything. Number 3, David said number 3 too. Okay, you guys are all saying number 3. I don't know. I think that the 3s are cute. You can't go wrong with clear, right? But I like the first ones too. And I think you can do one and buy one, get one 15% off. I like a deal. Maybe not. I think that you guys are right. Well, I have some glasses around the house, but one pair I've had for 10 years. They shouldn't even be like allowed in existence anymore. And then, oh, thank you. I might pick those 2 at the end. But I have a pair. I used to have a pair that I like sort of liked. They were okay. I never really wore them though, but my dog chewed them. So I've had my prescription for 2 years and I said I was going to get some glasses. So I'm going to get some glasses. Go with the clear ones. I think I'm going to go with the clear. I would do something cute like red or a bright color like that if it wasn't so close to summer, because summertime I don't wear a lot of red or black. I'm more of a browns girl. But I'm like, yeah. So they send them to you in this cute little box. That was my skit for the day. I mean, they're not paying me, but you know, They should have. Maybe they will someday. I felt, and seeing in the chat, to get back over to the Murdaugh, I love aviators, by the way. Aviator glasses. I do love those. Maybe I should get me a pair of like Jeffrey Dahmer glasses. That could be kind of cool just to have them. Just like, because it's like true crime, you know? But I did feel really bad for Buster today. On a whole new level, I felt so incredibly bad for him. I mean, I think in my heart, even if I knew in my heart that my father did those crimes, I think that I would want to still pretend that like I didn't, like that he didn't do those crimes, you know, because you still want to be able to like, that's your last of your family. Like you're born into this family, and your mother, I'm sure she was perfect mom, you know, she seemed like she loved her boys more than anything. And then you have this dad that's supposed to be this high priced lawyer, you know, and you think, you know, you kind of mess up, you do your things, you mess up. Every kid does in college. People mess up, and dad bails you out, and now all of this. So it's just crazy to me. Oh my God, I got a red pair. I look like Sally Jesse Raphael. Oh my gosh, I haven't heard about her in forever. My friend had a red pair and she looked cute in them, but she looks cute. She would look cute in a paper bag. I know. I need to go over to that. I'm gonna have to try that little sunglass or that glasses place too. Yeah, he didn't even look. And did you notice that when Alec walked out, I liked that they put the handcuffs on him in there and you could hear it. I don't know if they turned the volume up or what, but I heard both click. And I thought, Paul, Maggie, when I clicked. But he didn't even look back at his son. He didn't even, like, if that was my father, my dad would have at least looked back at me and been like, I love you. Please, like, it's okay. Like, you'll be, you know, you're okay or something. But he literally was like out, like trout. Yeah, they never looked at each other. Really? Wow, David. How did she do it? I mean, was it like a car accident, like one of those kind of things? Or did she like just really killed her? Because, you know, like some are like vernacular crashes. Yeah. So yeah. And then Daybell, we could start. Yeah. Daybell's hearing they're going to be split maybe. So I about fell off my rocker when I heard that today. I didn't think that was going to happen. Also, before we get into Idaho 4, for the Richard Allen, the bail hearing has been postponed. So it's postponed, it looks like, to June 15th through the 16th at 8:30. I do have a lot to show you guys for the Idaho 4 case. More search warrants came out, you know, from Pennsylvania. So a search warrant on his family's home came out, on his car, what they took out of his car, what they took out of his home, what they, we already did one, what they took off his person the other day. So we won't go back over that. We'll go over his first job that he ever had, which dealt with knives. So that's kind of, you know, crazy. Oh, Ina, I meant to write you before the live tonight. I think I accidentally put you on that block thing. I think that was me, Ina. I meant to write you because I looked under my like people and I was like, oh my gosh. So I think I got trigger happy on my iPad one night. Because if you click, you know, when you click, it'll say like, you can like block someone, not block, but like hide them or something like that. I think I accidentally did that and I didn't even realize it. So I'm so glad you wrote me. I'm glad that I see you in the chat. I saw it and I'm like, sorry guys, had to address something really quick. Just wanted to make sure. So, and I don't know who became a member, but it says someone became a member. Or maybe they were already a member and they became a member again. It only shows up on one side. That's so crazy for me. So I want to try not to touch the iPad anymore. Because like, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh. Will he be on suicide watch tonight? Okay, that's a very good question because I thought, that's what I said. I said the same thing a couple of days ago. If he ends up getting found guilty, how long will he last, do you think? He has two choices. You know, the S word, or he can try to become somebody in prison, like somebody big, you know, like, you know, because he's got connects. I'm sure he still has somebody out there that is connected to him, but I don't know. I think, or the third option is just to be a model prisoner, but I don't see that either. So I just think it's so crazy. I was reading your chat, sorry. No, I couldn't believe that I didn't see Summer in the live. I thought, like, I was like, she must just be like really not watching today, because you're always here. You're always like, oh my gosh, you know. So you're right. He probably will go to prison, and he'll be the guy for legal advice. You're exactly right. Oh my gosh. And you know, the thing is, there's so many guys in there that do that though. He might not be that great at it. Like, they might not really want him. Okay, I was just checking this to make sure everything was working good. So this was my you did not offend anybody or do anything wrong, Ina. That was me. I did that one time to Crime Sleuthin', but as soon as I did it, I knew that I did it. So I was like, oh my gosh, and I like emailed her and like was freaking out because she had just sent me a super chat too, and I blocked her. So I was like, oh my gosh. So any time that, if anything ever happens, so let me make this. Okay. So it's very easy for someone to like hit like timeout or hit like block or something like on the thing. If something ever happens in my chat and you get blocked and you've been in my chat and you're like, what the heck? Email me at titaniumbuiltboo@gmail.com. Or I'm going to keep an eye on my like block just to make sure nothing pops up there. But I accidentally did that, and I was like, oh, I felt so bad because I notice when people are not here. I'm just like, I notice when y'all are not here. So I usually will like contact people. I'm really like, because it's still such a small group, you know? So we have so much to go over with Idaho Four. So I'll go ahead and get into it. Let me share some of the stuff with you. I think I have it in somewhat of a working order. I did do a couple videos today over this, so some of it might sound repetitive, but it's not like going to be super repetitive or anything like that, because I found some new clips and all this good stuff. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you wrote me, Ina, because I would have felt so bad. Like if I wouldn't have noticed that, because then I went in and I noticed like a couple other people, and I was like, I don't remember doing that, so. So this one's going to be the first thing that we go over. Bryan Kohberger for, actually, let me make sure that I got everything that I wanted to say to you guys. Ow. So yeah, I did. Okay. So Kohberger, this was his first job, but we're going to go over this. I heard this last night. Before I read the article, I heard it on, News Nation, and I'll play you the clip. It was on Kumo. The ex-manager. If you guys have ever worked in customer service, you're going to get it. You're going to laugh at it. You're going to laugh. I mean, the dude, they wouldn't put him in front of the house. And when I heard like the manager, the boss, the owner say that, I ran out of the studio into the living room. I slid through the living room and I was laughing because all I've ever done my whole life is work with the public. And so I don't know. I've never seen how like people could be that awkward, I guess, with people. Like they just, I don't know. I'm awkward with people, but not like that. And I just don't see how like a 16-year-old kid could be that awkward, because usually when you're 16, you get a job and, you know, you work and stuff like that. And where I'm from anyway. So if you're just now joining us, we are going to be talking about the Idaho 4 case. I'm going to separate it into two halves. So we're going to do Idaho 4, and then we're just going to go ahead and stream the last half of the Nancy Grace podcast that we were listening to. It was, it's from her down there today in South Carolina. So we're hoping that she'll give us some good commentary. And I don't have her on a podcast tonight. I actually have the video so we can see her and her panel. It'll be a good live. Because sometimes, you know, when we have to watch the podcast, it's just like, I'd like to watch something. Yeah, Murdaugh, he is 6'4". He's a hair over 6'4" was his exact words. I don't know how I remember him saying that, but I do. So I'm going to read you guys this. It's just a short little thing. So, and then, Bruce, did you say that you were from South Carolina? Oh, wow. I thought I saw that. I think that's where Summers. Yeah, Summers from South Carolina. Someone else is from there, though. I can't remember. We had someone else there from there. I love the Carolinas. I think that's beautiful down there. I was trying to get Vincent to move down there a few years ago. If you guys could like the video, it does help the channel grow. It does help push it into the algorithm. For some reason, I am like not in that algorithm right now. So if you guys could do that to help your girl out, I really, truly appreciate it. Subscribe if you do love the content, or if you just love the creator, you know, either or, we'll take it. So it says here, years before firing from university job, Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger was problematic fish cutter employee. He was withdrawn and didn't show improvement, a former employer of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger tells People. So it says here, years before Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger was reportedly fired from his teaching job at Washington State University, he worked as a fish cutter at a lake in Pennsylvania. According to Charles Conklin, the owner of Big Brown Fish and Pay Lakes in Effort, Pennsylvania, Kohberger, 28, previously worked for him for a period of 4 months in 2011 as a seasonal employee when Kohberger was in high school. Kohberger was trained by Conklin to cut and fillet raw fish using industry standard knives. However, Conklin says due to Kohberger's demeanor, he forbid him from ever interacting with customers. He never warmed up and got friendly, Conklin tells People. Most kids that work here we consider like family. He was withdrawn and didn't show improvement. Like, and then this just goes on, you know, just talk about the killings and stuff. So that's basically the article there. What it says about the what the employee says, and he says more in his next interview with News Nation with Kumo, but. So his first job, I mean, I don't know if he grew up in the Poconos, but I know he grew up in Pennsylvania. Is that weird to have kniving skills in Pennsylvania? Because I don't know. I mean, filleting fish, my nephew knows how to fillet a fish. He's 20. My 8-year-old nephew can fillet a fish. My brother can fillet a fish. They're hunters. So I don't know. But it's still very, very, it's very telling, because a lot of people will, if they're going to use a weapon, they will use what they're familiar with. So for this weapon to have been a knife and him to have worked at a pay lake where, you know, they fillet the fish, they are supposed to just go around and like collect trash. He couldn't have even been that guy that just like walked around and smiled at people and like collected trash. You don't have to talk to people. You can still be an introvert. Just very strange. Yeah, hurricanes. Yeah, I don't know if I could do with that. I don't know if I could do hurricanes. See, yeah, Pennsylvania has a lot of hunting and fishing. I'm from Philadelphia, but I mean, I didn't grow up there, but I grew up in Ohio, and we have a lot of hunting and fishing here too. Oh, I bet. Yeah, Florida too. Florida hurricanes. I'm good. I don't like hurricanes. But then again, I don't like anything. I don't like any weather changes. If I could live in weather that's like sunny, 70s, I'd be in heaven. And if nothing was dead around me, I don't want dead plants around me.
Been wondering how Bryan Kohberger was allegedly able to stab 4 Idaho college students to death in just a few minutes.
Let me go ahead. I didn't explain this video very well to you guys. So basically, this is Kumo. He is going to talk to, this is kind of just leading off of the, the article that I just read. He's going to talk to his ex-boss that was the owner of the Pay Lake and get his point of view on how Kohberger interacted with people and how long he worked there, how much experience he had, and all that good stuff.
Well, it's a big question for the prosecution to explain to the rest of us, specifically the jury, but some insight into his past may give us some clues. Turns out Kohberger knew how to use a knife. Bryan worked as a fish cutter He was a filet man when he was in high school, trained to cut and fillet raw fish. I know how to do it. Means you got to know how to use a knife. Some say I stink at it. We'll see how Kohberger was. Joining me now is retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, who unearthed details for us, and Charlie Conklin, owner of the Big Brown Fish and Pay Lakes, the store where Bryan worked. First, I appreciate you coming on, Mr. Brown. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's Mr. Conklin, but thank you.
Mr. Conklin, sorry. Brown Fish, Conklin.
Yeah.
What do you want us to know about this kid that you remember? He was a kid then. He's in his late 20s now, obviously. But what did you teach him how to do, and what did you learn about him?
Well, first of all, our records show he was in our employment for 4 months, but he probably only worked about 20 days for us. And as far as filleting fish, he never got proficient at it. So we bring kids in and train them, and
I just want to point that out here because in other news segments that I'm going to play, they kind of say the opposite. So his boss just said right there that he wasn't very proficient at it. So he wasn't good at he wasn't good at it. He worked there, but he wasn't good.
until they're good enough, we don't allow them to do customers' fish. So he probably only practiced filleting maybe 8 to 10 days out of those 20 days. Another part of their job is to be friendly to customers, to help people fish, to pick up paper and stay busy. This probably was his first job because he was only, I think, 16 at the time. So after he was here several times, it became obvious to me that this job just wasn't for him. He wasn't able to make eye contact with customers and be friendly to them. And he never got good enough for us to allow him to fillet customers' fish. So I talked to his direct supervisor, who already was on board and saw the situation. He talked to Bryan, and really mutually they decided that that job was not for him. So that's
common experience.
Contact.
Common experience for him, by the way. He moved through a lot of jobs early on. It happens, but the reasons here remain somewhat of a mystery. So, Jennifer Coffindaffer, when you were looking at this and you're starting to pick up different pieces, what did you put together so far that you think is of interest to the audience?
Well, to me, this familiarization with a knife, as an investigator, you're looking at not only why did they commit a crime, but how did they commit the crime and their weapon of choice. I always wondered, if you're going to go into a house where you know there's multiple individuals in there, you want something quiet, certainly not a gun, plus that wouldn't have been personal enough. But why not manual strangulation or using a ligature or even blunt force trauma with something? No, he chose a knife. And when I saw this on this application, I thought, wow, he has at least a familiarization with knives, comfortable enough to seek employment using one.
And you also found a lot of information about his employment past. What's the headline on that before we go?
Well, certainly the police training he received, surveillance, conducting various other police jobs. So I think that's really important because we've known he was book smart. We know he studied criminology, but now we see he actually had practical application thereof.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com.
Okay, so yeah, that was his ex-manager saying that basically, I think he said he worked there for 4 to 6 months, but he only really worked 20 shifts in all, and maybe 10 of those shifts was training shifts to where he was, using a knife, or they were trying to get him, I guess, show him how to fillet a fish, and he wasn't really able to do it. I don't know. I think that, having a job at a pay lake isn't anything new, really. My nephew goes to the pay lake, and his cousins, they're a huge family. They're a huge family. There's 15 of them. They go to the pay lake every weekend during the summer. They go out there, they catch fish, and if you get the biggest fish, it's I think you do a raffle or something you put money in, but you can make like $500 in one night or $1,000 if you get the biggest fish. You just go out there and you fish all night. It sounds fun to me, but I wouldn't catch the biggest fish. I wouldn't catch any fish. But, you know, it sounds like a fun concept if it's, you know, like that. But I don't know. I guess after you catch the fish, if you decide you want them filleted there, that's when they would do that for you there. I've never had anybody, like my nephews would fillet their own. Do you know what I mean? Like they would get the catch and then fillet their own. Yeah, it's a bit far-fetched to say he used a knife. Yeah, and he's proficient. The boss even said he wasn't very good at it. When I heard that last night, it made me laugh so hard because I could just like picture Kohberger like seeing that like in jail and just his blood boiling, you know? Like, I don't know. They pretty much told him though, they let him go. Like there was nothing that they could do to even help, like help him. So you have to be pretty bad if they can't even take training measures or like shift you into another position. Like trash cleanup wasn't even like, that's one of the jobs there, they said, and they couldn't even have him do that because he was that bad around people. I wonder what he was doing. You're good at filleting? Oh, I'm not. I'm not good with like cutting meat at all though. That's true too. Yeah, if he was only 16, he certainly could have improved knife skills in 12 years. You're right, Sherry. You're absolutely right. Maybe that was the start. Maybe because he does do everything over the top. Do you know, like the weight loss, you know, the schooling and stuff like that. Maybe that was something that he took offense to in a way. Like he, you know, got fired kind of from that job. So he was like, well, I'll show them. I'll learn how to use a knife. And then he started maybe learning how to use one. I'm not saying started killing people. I'm saying like learning how to use a knife. Like maybe he started collecting knives, because you'll see whenever we get into what they were collecting from him, they collected a few different knives from him. So the next thing I want to show you is, this is a short clip, but I love Phil Walters. He is good people. So he was on Ashley Banfield last night, and they just kind of talked about just what we were talking about, you know, Kohberger working as a fish cutter back in 2011. And so I just wanted to play this small clip for you here, and then we will get into the search warrant here soon too.
Phil is a retired homicide detective from the Houston Police Department. He has investigated more than 400 homicide cases, so he knows what he does pretty well. So first, I got a couple of things I want to ask you about, Phil, but first, this like new reporting from people.
I actually, I always forget to do this. I always forget. So every time I do an open panel, I always forget to put the panel like link in the chat. So I am going to do that. If somebody wants to come up and they can join me on panel and just talk about the cases that we're going over. You guys, we can just talk like whenever we pause, you know, the videos, do whatever. But if you guys do want to come up, it is in the chat, and I'll put it in there periodically throughout as well. But I want to offer it to you. That way you guys can get your voices heard up here as well.
People magazine about Bryan Kohberger having been trained how to use industrial style knives. It was 2011. He was 17. Is this something that you think could become an issue or at least brought up in the trial against him?
Well, it's great to be back with you, Ashley. It's been a while. I would say that this is a part of the bigger puzzle. And I've talked about before that when I conducted these types of investigations, we did what we called a psychological autopsy on our suspect. So I think this is part of that process. And I think it will be just one other piece of information that will be placed into the whole. Now, whether or not it comes out in the trial, I mean, that remains to be seen at this point, and how relevant it would be in that setting.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of other questions too. There seems to be this weird gap I can't figure out in the timeline of the surveilling of Bryan Kohberger. I am really hoping they didn't just let him fly across the country with no eyes on, you know, if they thought that he was a homicidal maniac. But they did say, you know, that they knew he entered into Pennsylvania on the 26th, and they began the formal surveillance, like the physical. They called it physical surveilling of the house on the 27th. But he was crossing the country on the 16th. That's like 11 days. What was going on in those 11 days to the best of your knowledge? Because please tell me, Phil, that they had eyes on him and that physical surveillance is different than regular surveillance.
Well, that's not really a big difference. It's kind of semantics, but just speaking from what I have done myself, I would imagine that time gap is going to be their preparation for the stationary surveillance. Now, I would find it very strange if there was not rolling surveillance on him from the time that he left Idaho to the time he arrived in Pennsylvania.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation.
Okay, I like Phil Walters. I started watching him on, I think it was like ID Channel or one of those. But yeah, so J-O, I was thinking J-Lo when I like read that. But J-O in the chat said earlier, makes me wonder if he filleted that dog to prove them wrong. We talked about that on this channel, and I was like, no, I don't think that probably had anything to do with the case. But didn't they use the actual word like fillet? Like, I don't know. Now that I don't know, maybe. But that is very, very suspicious. Oh, that's cute. Your dog's sitting. I bet that's fun. Like, we have 2 dogs. We can't babysit any other dogs, but it would be fun if we could, like another little dog. My dogs would say, they would say, hell no, Mom. So this one is a little longer, but it's a document that I wanted to read to you guys here. So just want to see. Basically, this is about, hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I have the right one on here. It goes over like that she didn't, like that Miss Taylor didn't know who, Zaina Kernodle's mom was, Kara Kernodle, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to kind of go over it. It was a court date that they had via Zoom, and it was just kind of like, I guess, like a secretive one. No one really knew about it. I don't know. But I wanted to read it to you guys. And then I do have a video after we can watch too as well. And it'll go over that Bryan Kohberger's public defender, Ann Taylor, that she denies meeting, Zaina Kernodle's mom, which is, like I said, Kara Kernodle. It says here, that it's just the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. I'm not going to read the top too much, but I'll read the bottom here. It says, let me see if I can. Well, let me get back to my page. Sorry, guys. I want to see if, how you guys can see it to make sure it's kind of like small. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit for you guys, because that's like terrible. Is it not going to let me? Oh, yep, there we go. Okay, so let it be known that the following proceedings were had to wit. Court noted that presence of counsel and the defendant and stated that the defendant is still in custody. Court noted that all parties were appearing via Zoom. Court stated that this is the time set for the status conference. Court stated that this is a sealed recording of the proceedings and the minutes will be sealed in the court file. Court stated that the purpose of this hearing is to ensure the defendant is fully advised of his rights to counsel and any potential conflict Miss Taylor may have. Court further stated that the court recently met with Miss Jennings and Miss Taylor, and it was determined that it would be prudent to have this hearing. Court stated that Miss Taylor is the appointed public defender for Kootenai County, and Miss Taylor's name is on nearly all letterhead for Kootenai County Public Defender's Office, whether she is acting attorney or not. So right there, she's saying her name is on the letterhead of everything. I think that somebody, okay, I'm just going to say this. I'm pretty sure that Kara Kernodle is going to know whether she's going to look at a signature or she's going to look at the top of the letterhead. You know, I think she's going to know where to look to know where her public defender's actual name is. She's not a dummy. She knows where to look. Court explained to the defendant that a conflict of interest can arise if counsel currently or previously represented or represents an individual, or if there is some other conflict such that they would need to withdraw. Court stated that the court generally leaves the issue of conflict and the decision, if it is necessary to withdraw, to each attorney on a case-by-case basis, and to allow counsel time to discuss this decision with the individual they are representing. Court stated that based upon discussion with counsel this morning, it is the court's understanding that the defendant is in agreement with Ms. Taylor continuing to represent him, and further stated that it is the court's understanding that Ms. Taylor does not believe there is a conflict. The defendant stated that this is correct. So she said she doesn't believe that there's a conflict, and he agreed. 12:51 p.m., Ms. Taylor stated that her name appears on every document in the public defender's office, but below her name is the individual who actually represents the named individual in the case. Ms. Taylor stated the specific issue with the media has brought attention. Sorry, gotta go back. Okay. Let me see if I can blow this one for you, blow it up a little bit more. So sorry about that. I have to stop reading for a minute, but it says our two cases involving Xana Kernodle's mom, mother, Miss Kernodle. And it was actually, wasn't it more than two cases? But I'm not sure. Miss Taylor stated that there was an open felony case that she was not assigned to, and the case has since been conflicted out. Ms. Taylor further stated that there was a 2017 misdemeanor case which she was sentenced and her office was waiting to withdraw from. Ms. Taylor stated that the public defender who represented Ms. Kernodle in that matter was, and it's redacted, who left the prosecutor's PD's office in September or October. Ms. Taylor stated that her practice is to transfer all cases that are pending withdrawal or have a bench warrant issued to her. Ms. Taylor stated that the 2017 case was assigned to her on October 20th, and from October 20th until the date she withdrew, Ms. Taylor stated that she had no contact or relationship with Ms. Kernodle and has not met her or provided any legal advice. Ms. Taylor stated that most of what the media is reporting on regarding the Coonanny County cases is untrue. I'm just going to say these are things that Kara Kernodle have said. These are things that she said herself. The news didn't put any words in her mouth. They just asked her, did you talk to Ann Taylor before? Yeah. She signed power of attorney over to her. And she said it was to her. So that's how I don't know. Yeah, if she never met her, it should never be a problem. But if she would have had to have met her to have her sign the papers, unless when Kara went in there, she thought she saw another woman attorney and assumed that was Ann, and she just signed the papers, and just assumed it was Ann, but it wasn't Ann that she met. But then she's seen pictures of Ann, so she knows what she looks like. So that to me is just very strange. Ms. Taylor stated that she has spoken with Bill Thompson and Ashley Jennings and explained the above situation to them. Ms. Taylor stated that she has spoken with redacted at the ISB Bar Council office, who conferred with redacted, and all three do not believe that there is a conflict. So that's good. So long as the defendant is comfortable with her remaining on as counsel. Ms. Taylor stated that there is no other person that she is connected to in this case. That is a lie. Unless they are wrong, unless the news is wrong about that. But it's not just the news, it's publications and other articles, because they said that Maddie's father and Maddie's stepmother was also represented by her. So, and Ann Taylor here is saying that she has never She says, Ms. Taylor stated that there is no other person that she is connected to in this case, and stated that Mr. Kohberger is the only individual in this case to whom she owes a duty of advocacy and loyalty. 12:54 p.m. Upon inquiry from the court, Ms. Jennings stated that this is her understanding as well. Court questioned the defendant. The defendant stated that given the information he has heard and the conversation he has had with Ms. Taylor, he feels comfortable proceeding with her as counsel. So he feels comfortable. 12:55 p.m. Court advised the defendant of his rights to have an attorney, and if he believes there is conflict, the court can find and appoint different counsel. The defendant stated that he understood. Court questioned the defendant. The defendant stated that it was his wish to proceed with Ms. Taylor as counsel. 12:56 p.m. Court stated that there is a lot of speculation surrounding this case and has spoken with the attorneys regarding staying focused on the facts. Court appreciates this issue being brought to the court's attention and stated that this information appropriately covers any concerns. So that kind of tells us there that they feel like there's no conflict of interest. So he said that he feels fine with her representing him. So he should not be able to come back later on and say, oh, no, just changed my mind, He can't really do that now. Oh, I signed the petition already. I've actually put it up on the live for other people to sign it. Yeah, I guess that's the end of that. I mean, as of we know right now. Yeah, they could have handled it. They could have handled any of, I don't know why they had her handling it. They probably had her handling it because they all have extra people. Like when you work in the public defender's office, whether you're at the tippy top or you're at the bottom, you're working a stack full of cases that you can't get they're just so many. You're always constantly, working a case and trying to figure something out. So I'm sure that she had a lot of cases under her belt too. Maybe she just doesn't remember them. But who knows? You thought it was Friday all day? I kind of did too because Vincent was home. So yeah, it is on the Gonzalez family's page. I'll actually put the and this is how you spell it. If BK doesn't have the most qualified lawyer, he can get off for lack of defense. Yeah, well, he's saying in these court documents that he is fine with her. So as long as he's fine with her, then, then that's it. I mean, he can't really be coming back later on. He's of sound in mind and he's good. And he stated multiple times in this that he was questioned by her, that he talked to her, he conferred with her, they were hanging out. And every time he was like, yeah, it's cool. I have no problem with her representing me. He might think in his head, like later on, he might be like, oh, later on I can come back with this. And like, turn my cameras. I guess I can he's like, I can come back and, maybe try to play this card later on, but I don't know. Oh, I thought that was my TV, but it's the TV out in the living room. I can just see this one on. Oh no, pollen. And oh yeah, I have really bad allergies, extremely bad. So this is going to kind of lead into what we were just discussing. So this video here is Ashley and then Bryan's outside of the courthouse for the Murdaugh trial because he's doing double duties.
Now we're learning of a secret meeting that happened about this gag order. What have you found out?
Yeah, so this meeting was actually about Ann Taylor, the public defender representing Kohberger. There's been all these questions about whether there is a conflict because there were these there was this reporting, and her name was listed on the documents that had to do with Xana Kernodle's mother when she was arrested. And did she represent Xana Kernodle, and could she actually represent Bryan Kohberger too? Was that a conflict? Well, there was this Zoom meeting. It was back on January 27th between the judge. Kohberger was also involved, and Ann Taylor. And there is now a transcript that has just been released of what happened during that meeting. And it's very interesting, Ashley, and there is new information about this. Essentially, Ann Taylor told the judge that her name appears on every document in the public defender's office because she is the chief public defender. She says that Xana's mom had a different public defender, that Ann Taylor was not her lawyer, that she has never had any contact with Xana's mom, no relationship ever with Xana's mom, and never offered any legal advice to Xana's mom, and that there really is no conflict there. The judge seems to have agreed based on the transcript. Kohberger at the end of this meeting said that he still wanted Ann Taylor to be his public defender. And the meeting was ended, and apparently that's why things moved forward, and they decided there wasn't a conflict, Ashley.
What I find fascinating about that is if Ann Taylor were so confident of this, I was simply on the masthead of the documents as the head of the public defender office, then why did they send over a state police officer to interview Kara Kernodle in jail, because we have discovered this, and flash pictures at her to see if she recognized Ann Taylor? Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to read some of your guys' comments as we were listening to the video as well. People can't put the links in the chat, I don't believe. So that's probably what it is. I forget what I was going to tell you guys. I was going to say something to you guys about this video. Now I can't remember what it was. I guess it doesn't matter. But no, that was just so they were going over what I just went over in the conflict of interest paperwork, that that document that I just read to you guys. That was basically News Nation's little video that they did on it yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the different search warrant stuff that they got off of Bryan Kohberger. They got a lot of different things. So most of the stuff that it is unlegible. Literally, the officer, whoever the officer was that wrote it out, they should have gave him a typewriter. I don't know. In the beginning, he was doing okay. And then towards the end, it's like so illegible. I've got it printed off. I'm going to try to dissect it a little more, because even people that are bringing the story out, they're kind of saying all the same things. So I think that a lot of people can't read some of these items that are listed. So if you guys can, let me know. I'm gonna try to write them all out. Eventually, there's 63 items, so I wanted to see if we could get to the bottom of them, because some of them are computer things. I know, because I could read some sort of some of the stuff in there, like motherboard. I could read that. But some of the stuff I couldn't read. But the first one I'm going to go over is just, this one is going to be for his vehicle. So this is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And this is just, the same paperwork that we've looked at before. The warrant, shall be served at 4 p.m. by 4:30 p.m. December 31st. And then this is the stuff that the contents that they are looking for in the search warrant. It says here that this is what they're searching is and it says describe the location. But it says 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with the Washington registration. It gives the license plate. And this is what they took out of the vehicle. So this is whatever they collected and they seized. And this was on December the 30th. So the day that they arrested him is the day that they seized all of the stuff out of his vehicle. Yeah, Brittany, I read the first half of this. We already so this stuff up here, we already read this in the last live. So I was going to give you I wasn't going to make you guys have to go through all of that again. So that's why I didn't read it all. But if you guys want me to read it all out, I mean, we may be here for a while, but I would. So this is the stuff that you guys really want to know. You want to know what they found in the vehicle. So it was a 2015 Hyundai Elantra, and it gives the VIN number, description of items. It says swabs, Ziploc bag with pink zipper, 7 quarters, plastic baggie with green zipper, 36 dimes, 32 nickels, 8 pennies, gloves, receipts, car insurance card, car registration, hiking boots, comfort in room key holder and stay information, tire irons, shovel, goggles, floor mats, reflective vest, used water bottles, wrench, and then this is where it starts to get interesting to me anyway. Door panel, the seats, they took the seat cushions, they took the headrest, they took the seat belt, they took the visor. It says fiber, so I'm not sure what the fiber means unless it's something, it has to be something part of the car. Because this is all like parts of a car, but the brake pedal, the gas pedal, phone charger, a Band-Aid. Now, I don't know if that's a used Band-Aid or a non-used Band-Aid. So, hold on one second. Sorry. Brittany, yeah, I just went over that. You said that I think a couple of times now. Yeah, I said that that I've already read. I already read through the document in the beginning. So this document up here, all of this right here, we've already read this in the last live. So I wanted to just show you guys what they got out of the vehicle, because this up here is just going to tell you the approval of search warrant applications, person to serve search warrant, contents. It's just, this is fluff. So unless you guys want me to read all of that to you, let me know. But if not, I'll just continue to read what they found in the vehicle. That's all. So they found wrappers, maps, documents, and then a seatbelt boot, which a seatbelt boot, I am not sure what that is. Somebody said it in the comment section, and now I can't remember exactly what they said. But I can't remember exactly what they said. So if you guys know that, let me know. Because I don't know what a seatbelt boot is. I'm dying to know. I thought it might have been something that at first I thought it was something that those things that you put on, it's like a cushion for your chest, for the seatbelt. But then when I was reading on Google, it was giving me weird stuff, guys. I don't even know what I was looking at. So I'm not sure what a seatbelt boot is, but whatever it is, it was, they took it with them. So that's what I think it is. It could be the leather covering, for real said, the metal on the seatbelt. Because I did read, it said something like it was a protector for the seatbelt so it didn't fray as bad. But that's all I could find on it. Oh, yeah, no. Some of that stuff I can't. Did he read out some of those things, though, on the other one? Because I'll have to give that man some super chats if he can read some of this stuff. I'll have to show you the next one. Brittany, some of the handwriting on that, I'm like, The guy really tried in the beginning. It's kind of like me when I write. In the beginning, I feel like I'm so confident in my handwriting, and then my hand starts to hurt after a while, and then it's unlegible. So I'll show you guys that one here in just a moment too. And then, so you guys will know what I mean. I do like I do like listening to him though. He makes documents seem not so boring because he's a lawyer, I think, and he just makes them not so boring. I don't know. Some people can read documents and they're just like so monotone, and I'm just like, oh, I could fall asleep. And I'm one of those people. I could fall asleep to my own voice probably. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to the stream here. I'm going to add you up here. If you want to just mute yourself. And
5:34 p.m. He runs out the loading dock doors, and how do you get?
Okay, I muted you. I just muted you that way it wouldn't echo. I'm going to grab my headphones really quick because I might need them. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, I put my headphone in, so hopefully that will be okay. And hopefully you guys can hear me okay, because now I can't really hear myself. And hopefully Wizard can hear okay. Oh, so he did read it all? Okay, so we'll have to look at that. I am going to play this and then we can discuss. And if you have anything you want to share, just let us know. And can everybody hear me okay? Sounds like we're good. Yeah, thank you, Doyle. Yes, if you guys could hit the subscribe button, share, all that good stuff. We'd love to have you. We love to have you here. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it as well. So those are the things that he found in the vehicle, or those are the things the officer found in the vehicle. And then, of course, News Nation, Rush Hour, they came out with what they found in his vehicle. So it just kind of helps. And before we get to that, can you hear me okay, Wizard? Let me see. Can you hear me okay? Okay. All right, I'm just going to mute it. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this really quick, and I'm going to mute myself.
Closer look at one of the search warrants in connection to the Idaho student murders. This one from Bryan Kohberger's parents' Pennsylvania home, garage, and car. Investigators seized more than 60 items in all, including a gun, 3 empty magazine clips, and a pocket knife. 2 knives, a Glock handgun with 3 empty magazines, along with a treasure trove of computers, hard drives, and handwritten notes. Just some of the dozens of items law enforcement hauled out of the Pennsylvania home where Bryan Kohberger was arrested late last year. A newly unsealed arrest warrant offering the clearest picture yet of what police were looking for in Kohberger's parents' house, what they found and what they didn't. The very first item listed, a knife, no manufacturer, description, or other details included. No indication if it could be the murder weapon that police are still believed to be searching for, a fixed blade knife, the sheath of which was left behind at the scene of the murders. A Smith & Wesson pocket knife taken from the house does not appear to match the description of the murder weapon. The warrant shows authorities were looking for any signs of blood, bodily fluids, or other DNA, like hair or fingerprints, but no such items were taken from the house. They were also searching for anything that may have belonged to any of the victims, as well as anything that may have indicated Kohberger was watching them or staking out their home. Police did seize 4 laptops, a cell phone, and several other electronic devices, along with dozens of articles of clothing. They also found, quote, a book with underlining on page 118, a green leafy substance in a plastic bag, black face masks, black gloves, and a black hat, which matches the description one of the surviving roommates gave to police, saying the attacker was, quote, clad in black clothing and a mask. Search crews also took, quote, a man's world drawing, a note from Bryan to Montana, and a note from Dad to Bryan. Investigators also tore apart the car Kohberger drove from Washington State to Pennsylvania with his father weeks after the murders, hauling away almost everything inside, including seats, headrests, even the gas and brake pedal. All right, let's bring in criminal defense attorney Richard Block. Richard, thank you for your time today. So we went through that list of items seized. The black clothing, the knives really stand out to me. Is there a high probability these items were directly involved that night?
Well, we certainly couldn't say anything about probability right now. We don't know if those were the knife, if they.
Okay, so I want to go over the green leafy substance that they found really quick, because my head didn't even go there, and it should have. Not at first. My head went to, you know, when you're a kid and you're a little kid and you pick flowers for your mom and she puts them in like a Ziploc little baggie, and then years later it just looks like a bunch of crap in there, like, you know, leafy, like just leafy stuff. So that's what my mind went to. I don't know. I must have been having a weird moment when I thought of that. But then later on this evening, I was like, green leafy substance. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, could that be marijuana? Which is very strange if he did have marijuana all the way from cross country, because that's a long trip. I mean, unless he got it when he got back home, you know, which he could have. He could have got it right when he got back home. But yeah, I know. I didn't think that he would be smoking. I don't know why. I don't know why. Because the thing is, medical is fine. I mean, it's out there. Everyone does it. Like, that should have been on my mind, but it wasn't. It was picking flowers. I don't think he was picking flowers.
Were the clothing, and obviously we have a long list of clothing that was seized here today. They're gonna be looking and trying to match that. I'm sure all that stuff is sitting at a crime lab right now, and they're going over it with a fine-tooth comb, trying to find blood, hair, anything else that might tie it to that crime scene.
Absolutely. Well, you know, some of these items, you know, it's a little odd because the gun, you know, full descriptions, manufacturer, serial number, but then there are other items. It just says knife or documents. And one that definitely stands out is what we had in that piece there, book with underlining on page 118. Richard, is there a reason some of these items would be described that way, almost to maybe withhold some of the specifics?
Well, that one certainly is an odd one. I couldn't tell you why they wrote book with underlining on page 118 and didn't give you the name of the book or a description of what type of book is, which they did in other places. They described what sounded like some textbooks and other things and notebooks and other places. Who knows on that one? It could certainly be to hide it, or it could be something as simple as the cover page was ripped off and it didn't have a title on the top of the book.
Very good point. How damaging could this evidence end up being to his defense?
Well, I think certainly they're looking for two things, obviously, here is motive, and they're looking for any other evidence that ties him to the crime scene. Finding of blood on some of the clothing would be incredibly damaging, and motive would help with what is largely so far a circumstantial case and tying all those facts together. If they found some sort of writing that indicated his desire to commit murders or something like that, or that would certainly be potentially very damaging.
And what do you think? You know, they took apart essentially the car, right? We know that they took the gas pedal, the brake pedal. Would there be some reason, though, to have kept the car intact?
Well, they're taking it apart because they're looking for anything that might be hidden inside of it. This is the kind of thing what we see often when cars are stopped for drug stops, that the whole car gets torn apart. Because in a car, most normal people don't realize that there are plenty of places to hide things inside a car where you wouldn't normally see them. So that's why they're tearing the car apart. They're looking through it for anything that might be in there that, or of course, they're also going to be looking for blood and other things that might be found in the carpet or, you know, or underneath a latch or something like that in the car.
Absolutely. All right, Richard, thank you for that. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below.
Okay, I was trying to find, actually I was trying to pull up my images of the receipt for property. So this is the the whole document, but this is going to be the receipt for property for the Kohberger's parents' home. I was going to show you this one, but I have a copy that is, it might be a little better, maybe. Actually, I don't know. I just liked it because I highlighted what I could actually read for you guys. Because like some of the stuff, this officer was like, you can't read it. You're not allowed. It's like if I... Okay, yeah, it's just not going to let me do that. So we're going to do it this way. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to read most of the ones that I can read to you that I found that was, of substance. So number 1 is a knife. Doesn't say what kind of knife it is, but it does say a knife. Book with underlining on page 118, AT&T bill for Bryan Kohberger. He has a Glock 40 caliber, so a Glock 40 in his possession. They have the serial number listed. Smith & Wesson pocket knife. Folder containing vehicle paperwork. Acer laptop model. Computer, green leafy substance in green container. Documents, green leafy substance in plastic bag. White paper with password. Power cable, cell phone. 3 Glock 40 caliber magazines that were empty. Books, black face masks, prescription, black gloves, 1 black hat, and 1 black mask. I thought that was pretty telling. The 1 black hat and the 1 black mask listed as number 19. Personal identifying documents. They got some New Balance shoes, dark colored jacket. They got another dark colored jacket. They got 4 dark colored jackets. 3 dark colored shirts. 2 pairs of dark colored pants. I think they say clear plastic gloves. You can kind of see how the handwriting goes from like okay up here to, if you can see, where he looks like he's drunk writing almost. Let me see, actually, let me get my stuff beside me. Because if I at least have these, I could tell you what I can read. And if you guys are just now joining us, we are talking about the Idaho Four case. We're going over the documents that were just unsealed for Bryan Kohberger. They unsealed the documents for his person on Tuesday, and then from Pennsylvania when he was arrested. And then they went ahead and they unsealed the documents for his home, for his parents' home, his parents' home, and for his vehicle today. So we're going over his parents' home. Those are the ones that we're going over right now. And so the next one that I could read was actually number 31, which is a criminal psychology book. And then number 32, it says documents and I can't read that word, but it says university notebook. It might say, actually, that says DeSalle's university notebook. Sorry. Then you go down here. The next one that we have is extra large Columbia Navy fleece. Then I can't read anything until you get to number 38, and it says black gloves. Number 46. I don't know how I can read it there, but I can't read it. Note from Bryan from Montana. Number 49 is, let me move it down here, court documents. So not sure what the documents were, what sort of court documents those were. And then this one is the last page, and it has a lot, I think, listed on it that I could read. So someone actually gets this wrong, and it's on one of the News Nation. I believe it's probably the one I'm going to play next, and I'll make sure that I get it. Like I'll catch it, and I'll let you guys know. But number 50 says, note to dad from Bryan. So Bryan wrote his dad a note of some sort. Now, if you're a 28-year-old male, why are you writing your father a note? Unless it's something extremely important that you want him to know. Court is the 26th. They blocked off that whole week so that they could hear evidence and stuff. So, and that way there'll be no continuances. So, yeah, I don't know what the note says, but on one of the court channels, I think it was News Nation. I'm not sure actually who it was. Oops. Yep, it was News Nation. I believe that's who it was. They got it wrong. So they said they just said it. They said it backwards. That's all. They said it was a note from Bryan to his, or from his dad, from Bryan's dad to him, but it was really a note to his dad from Bryan. And then this says a maroon colored spiral notebook, HP all-in-one printer. I think that's what that's supposed to be, computer, because it says all-in-one computer, but I think that could be a printer, but maybe it is a computer. This is a laptop that is, I can't, Levinox, I can't say that name, but I think that's what it is. And then this is some sort of medallion desktop, some sort of computer, I'm assuming computer stuff. Dark clothes in the laundry basket. And then here is a tailor cutting knife with leather sheath. So we know he likes to keep his knives in a sheath. Apparently, some of them anyway. And then they took 4 swabs, 2 pairs of dark colored boots, and 1 pair of brown boots. So they took a lot. I'm wondering too, Bill Long, if he has other people that, other victims. They are looking in 2 different counties. Nothing's come up yet, but they are looking. So that's just, I agree with you, Summer. He looks to be a little on the odd side. He had that odd look on his face. So yes, I'll play this News Nation one, and then we'll get on to Fox, because I still want to play Nancy.
Program Tribunal Justice on Amazon Freevee, and also the host of the podcast, The Tanya Acker Show. Okay, Judge, I'm so glad you're here, because you know this business of warrants being executed, the timing of them, the sealing of them, the unsealing of them. Do you have any idea or any sort of thoughts as to why they would hold this sealed for the 60 days? Like, what benefit advantages it to the Pennsylvania folks to keep this under seal? They're not part of the gag order.
Well, I think that if you're prosecuting this case, Ashley, you want to control the narrative, you want to control the story, and that means to some extent controlling the dissemination of information. We're still in very early days when it comes to really setting out the narrative and telling the story of how these crimes happened, the blow by blow that the jury is eventually going to hear. So to the extent that one can limit the information that goes out into the public before the lawyer has the chance to kind of steer that information and put it into the context that they want, that's really part of the strategy, I think, and the theory behind, wanting to continue with a gag.
So I wanted to ask you sort of a small detail. I don't know if there's anything to be made of this or not, but in the list, and I'm going to ask the control room if they can throw that list up again of all the things that they seized that finally we discovered today when they unsealed the warrant. They listed, a flashlight and 4 medical gloves, and then all these things that looked like they were just things he was wearing: a white t-shirt, a black sweatshirt, a pair of socks, a pair of size 13 sneakers, black shorts, black boxers, and a buckle swab. Why? I'm trying to make some sense out of the flashlight and the 4 medical style gloves being lumped in with what looked like basically what was on Bryan's person.
I don't know why the warrant would be drafted in this way, but again, Ashley, it goes to the point that I just made. What the prosecution needs to do here is to tell the story. And so you tell a story about a defendant, a murderer, who has a flashlight. He kills folks with gloves. He's wearing all black. Remember, the roommate of one of the victims recalled that she'd seen someone in the early hours of the morning of the murders wearing all black. So connecting that black-clad murderer to this defendant is an important part of the prosecution's story. So it really is about buttoning up all these little details so that when you're standing in front of the jury, you can give them specific, specific points, specific facts, little things that tie this defendant to the crime. And that's what they're trying to do here.
Let me ask you about the size 13 sneakers. I sort of like that. I seized on that right away. And I thought, look, I don't know a lot about men's shoes, but I asked my husband, you're about a size 10 and a half. Isn't that kind of normal? It turns out.
So remember the other day when I brought up the shoe print inside the home, and there is no measurement for that out on public yet. And I realized, because someone actually was telling me about a News Nation clip they saw, and they were going to send it to me, and then they didn't get the chance, I guess, to send it to me. But Ashley Banfield says right here, she talks about his shoe size being a 13, and she never mentions that the shoe print inside the home. So I believe right then and there, she would have been like, oh yeah, and then the shoe print inside the home was blah, blah, blah. She just goes on to say that it's not a very popular shoe size.
Oh, that size 10 and a half.
Which actually surprised me. I thought a size 13 or 12 or 13 was pretty popular, but I didn't realize that it wasn't.
Is standard, sort of the most average shoe size across America. And then I asked one of our staff members to do some research. And in 2014, a study showed that size 12, 13 represent only 10% of shoe sales for men across the country. To me, that sounds like a really good piece of evidence, because there is that latent shoe print found in blood in the victim's home. So put those pieces together for me and tell me why that might be super critical.
Well, again, look, you're standing in front of the jury if you're the prosecutor, and you're going to say, look at this bloody footprint in the home, which is also matches the defendant's shoe size, which is not, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, a very common shoe size in the United States. Again, it's about trying to connect the dots and giving the jury compelling bits of specific information that tie this defendant to the crime. That is one such specific piece of information.
Yeah. And, it's like whenever people say, just a circumstantial case, I want to slug them, because all cases that I cover are pretty much circumstantial. You rarely get a witness to, a murder. I mean, you get them.
I've argued this exact thing on my page. I feel like on my live before, where people are like, this is all circumstantial evidence. They don't have a case. Most cases are built upon circumstantial evidence. It's called, the circumstances around it is what, did he do it or did he not do it? A lot of the time there isn't direct evidence or like an eyewitness or anything. And in this case, as of right now, we have an eyewitness. So I guess we're kind of doing better. I mean, as of right now, if what Dylan says and everything is kind of lining up, I mean, what they're finding in his home and stuff is lining up.
But not that often. So most cases that we deal with in American jurisprudence, it oftentimes is circumstantial, and it can be extraordinarily strong, sometimes better than an eyewitness was Mr. Magoo. So in that respect, if you have so many of these pieces, it just becomes less and less reasonable to assume that it's not the guy. Maybe one or two, you could say that's unreasonable to leap to the conclusion, but like 10 or 15, it gets to the unreasonable. All right, last question real quickly, and that's about this gag order in Idaho. I've just been ranting away at the amount of secrecy in the Idaho courts. And I'm not just talking about the Idaho, the Moscow, Idaho murders. I'm talking about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They just seem to do this like it's Tuesday. I mean, it's just standard op. And I have been under the impression that that's not the way we operate, that it should be a last resort to put things under gag. Are you seeing that this is increasingly the way courts are operating everywhere? Is this Idaho unique? What's your read?
I don't know, Ashley, that I have a specific read, but what I will say is that there is a lot of concern amongst decision makers, and not just decision makers, but legal players, about the effect of pretrial publicity, pretrial talking, social media posts. People, you've got to still go and get your jury, and you want a jury that has been as untainted as possible. Now, I hear the concern, and I think you raise a really good point, that the public has an interest in knowing how our judicial system works and in knowing that, how the process is moving forward. But I do think that And again, I don't have any specific comment on whether or not this is becoming more or less common, but I do think that many, many people now who are participants and players in the system are just worried about being able to control the narrative, because information gets out there so quickly and it can be spun so quickly by either side, or frankly, somebody who perhaps doesn't even have a direct interest in the case, that there is a concern about getting the reins on that.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
Hold on one second, guys. Sorry. Okay, let's see here. I was going to move on from that. We're going to go over to, we're going to switch gears. But no, that's all I kind of had to show you for Idaho. There's a lot of information coming out about stuff that they found. I want to try to go through, I want to go through that again and try to list more items that I can kind of read. Or if somebody else, if I find something on Twitter and someone else can actually read some of this stuff, because I can't read some of those things. Or I'll look at the lawyer you may know. Maybe he can read them off. Because it's chicken scratch to me, so maybe another man can read chicken scratch. I don't know. But what did I want to say before we moved on? I think that's all, really. I want to go ahead and show you the Nancy Grace. Do you guys want to watch the Nancy Grace Fox Nation thing that she had, that she did? We already know, that court, or, the trial is almost over. They have a verdict now, but this is basically just off the tail end of what we watched yesterday. So it's basically what we were watching last night. It'll be like like yesterday in court, basically. So, okay, you want to watch it? I'll play it for you guys then. And she actually has her panel on there, so that's actually better. But I have a funny thing to show you guys actually really quick. This is kind of funny. Now that OJ's, now that 95 is many, many years ago, maybe we can have a little laugh before we start Nancy. OJ decided to weigh in on the Alex Murdaugh trial. The juice decided he's going to put his 2 cents in, squeeze the orange one more time, and he was more of a, I guess an expert at these things. So this is what he had to say. It's about a minute long, so I'll play this for you.
Well, I just told a buddy of mine, we were on the phone, and we were talking about this murder case, and I said, well,
Actually, sorry, that's the wrong one. This is the one. Hold on.
Yeah, more than likely. Hey, Twitter world, is me, yours truly. Well, a whole lot of people asking me what I think about this Alex Murdaugh trial. I don't know why they think I'm an expert on it, but I got to admit, when he took the stand, a guy who's an habitual liar, I did watch when the trial first started. I watched him take the stand, and I thought it was probably a mistake because the guy is an admitted liar. And it's hard for me to think he can be on the stand 5, 6, 7, 8 days without lying. Question is, what did he lie about? But lying and stealing money is a little different than murder. I realized in watching them testify what he was doing. He was just trying to relate to 1 or 2 of those jurors that he was a good old boy. He was one of them. And I'm not sure he didn't succeed in doing that. I am not qualified to really say if the guy did it or he didn't do it. If a juror missed an hour of testimony, they no longer qualified. I've missed days that I haven't watched this. But from what I've seen, do I think it's more likely that he did it? Yes. But more likely equals reasonable doubt. From what I know, I would have to say there's a lot of reasonable doubt there. He's going to go to jail for all the thievery he did, stealing millions of dollars of people. I think he should be looked at more.
The thievery is what got me. It's not even the murder part. It's the thievery, because that's what OJ ended up going to prison for, was burglary. He went to go rob people to get his own memorabilia back. Like, so he's an expert. He is an expert. Let me keep playing it. But when I saw this today, I lost it.
About the death of his housekeeper a few years ago, where he ended up with over $4 million of the insurance money. I think they should take a hard look at that. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least if this guy beats this case. He's going to go to jail. He's going to go to jail for all the money he stole. I'm curious there because I got 9 to 33 years. 33 years because I caught some guys trying to sell my stolen property and I yelled at them. Even they didn't think I should go to jail, and the judge gave.
Did you hear him say he yelled and they stole his memorabilia and then OJ yelled at them? No, sir. No, sir. I was a little girl and I still remember you had weapons and you had 2 big dudes with you walking through like what was a hotel in Vegas going to get your stuff back. So no, sir. Don't you come up on Twitter lying all these years later like us older folks don't remember you. OJ, the juice.
Gave me, just Jackie Glass gave me 9 to 33 years. So I'm trying to see what this guy is going to get. I was up there with guys who had robbed casinos and robbed banks 2 or 3 times, and they had half the time or a third of the time that I got. So I'm always curious to see what kind of time these guys get for stealing millions of dollars. When I caught guys stealing my stolen property, the state of California, after I was convicted, ruled it was my property and they gave it to me. So I have it now. So how do you go to jail for catching guys who are trying to sell your stolen property? Well, nevertheless, I do think this guy more than likely did it. But once again, more than likely, to me, is tantamount to reasonable doubt. It would work against him in a civil trial, but I don't know if it's going to work against him in this criminal trial. Wouldn't surprise me in the least if he beats this. I'm just saying, take care.
So yeah, that's the juice. Oh, good night, Isabel. Oh, I hope your dentist appointment goes well tomorrow. I hate the dentist. Yeah, pulled a gun. That's what I thought. The juice is loose. Yeah, I can't believe he's back. And I'm sorry, but God, why did you bless this man to like still look the same as he did in 95? I feel like he shouldn't look that good. Oh, well, how long did he stay in jail? Does anyone know? Because I remember him getting like 30 years or like up to 30 years. And I thought he was still in jail until I saw this today. And I was like, what? I was like, he's out and about. So I'm going to move it along. I'm going to actually see and make sure that Nancy didn't do another podcast. Because, you know, she's sneaky like that, but she didn't. Okay. So this is on Fox Nation. And so sometimes she'll put them on here. That way we can actually watch her instead of just doing the podcast where we're just listening to her.
That a juror had engaged in improper conversations with parties not associated.
And I'm going to try to not stop this that much, just because, you know, it's long and it's getting a little later, but, and then that way you guys can watch it all through too. But when I heard, I didn't catch a lot of the trial today, like in the beginning, but I did catch this. This is hilarious. They, so before, if you guys haven't heard, they do end up, excusing a juror. Before they excused this said juror, they asked her if there's anything that she had in the courthouse still that she needed to get. You would think someone would say, yeah, my purse or my lunch, my cell phone maybe, or something along those lines. She had a dozen of eggs. Now, were they members for each egg represent a juror? I don't know. I don't know why you bring eggs into the jury box. Maybe you were going to color them. Easter's around the corner, so maybe she has to start getting them colored. I don't know. But she wanted her eggs. When the judge asked her, he said, well, do you want them? She was like, yeah. And he just like laughed. And he was just like, okay. So, you know, eggs are expensive though. So I would want them too. Oh, the juror has a farm and shared them all the farm eggs. I had no idea. I was like, you have 12 eggs or something, like, because it sounded like it was a dozen or something. So that's so crazy. You have 15 grandbabies? Oh my gosh. Congratulations. She had a baby today. Oh, congratulations. Yeah, so she wanted her dozen eggs before she left. So that's what it was. It's just so much. That's just too much, The egg thing cracked me up.
Associated with the case, juror denied discussing the case with anyone not on the jury or with anyone on the jury. She provided information that led us to contact the persons that she was suspected of having conversations with concerning the case. Those individuals were interviewed and provided an affidavit regarding the contact that the juror had with them. I'm not suggesting that you intentionally did anything wrong, but that in order to preserve the integrity of the process and in fairness to all the parties involved, we're going to replace you with one of the other jurors.
Guys, we have just come out of the courtroom, and what a morning it has been. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thanks for being with us. We are live at the courthouse here at Colleton County. I want you to hear the first thing this morning, how the whole session got kicked off. Take a listen to our cut 9.
A few days ago, I received a complaint from a member of the public indicating that a juror had engaged in improper conversations with parties not associated with the case. Juror denied discussing the case with anyone not on the jury or with anyone on the jury. She provided information that led us to contact the persons that she was suspected of having conversations with concerning the case. Those individuals were interviewed and provided an affidavit regarding the contact that the juror had with them. I'm not suggesting that you intentionally did anything wrong, but that in order to preserve the integrity of the process and in fairness to all the parties involved, we're going to replace you with one of the other jurors.
Christine, I think you've got me in the control room, but I also believe you just heard sound of the judge dismissing a juror. You know what I'm hearing in my ear now is, Fox Network. So if you could fix that, I will go on to the guests and hopefully they'll be able to hear me. Guys, with me an all-star panel to make sense of what's happening in the courtroom right now. Straight out to Eric Bland, high-profile lawyer who represented the Satterfield family. What do you make of the judge throwing off the juror?
The reason is because the juror disregarded his directive. He told the jury in the beginning when they took their oath that they have to listen to him, that they cannot make up their minds, that they cannot begin to deliberate before he releases the evidence and the case to them after he charges them on the law. And this juror obviously made some comments to someone that would indicate that that oath was in jeopardy. And maybe that there were other jurors who complained that possibly that juror was trying to infect the jury room. This is a very serious thing. Both sides want to have a full and fair opportunity to present their cases, and the judge was left with no choice.
Eric Bland has been one thing after the next with the jury. I got word yesterday from a source that's been in the courthouse with me that said 2 jurors were actually having words. In fact,
Yes, ma'am.
one juror said to the other, "The F you will." Okay, I don't know which 2 jurors said that, but that did happen. I mean, what are they arguing about? Their lunch order? If
Well,
they're arguing before they even begin deliberations, that's a bad sign.
Well, it is a bad sign, and it's going to show that there is some hard feelings that probably developed when you have this group of different people being put in a room and they can't get to know each other by talking about the case. And then people develop factions where 2 people start to be close with 2 people and then another group of people. I think this is a portend to what this jury is going to do. I think we're going to see smoke and fireworks from that jury room. I don't think we're going to hear peace and quiet. I have some legitimate concerns when you have a 6-week trial and there is this strong feelings. Look, I'm shaking right now, Nancy. I just heard some of the best oratorial lawyering by John Meadors. I mean, that was from the heart. I also like the lawyering.
I got to tell you
Jim
something, Bland. Meadows, not to take away from the other lawyers, but John Meadors gave what I consider to be the best summation we have heard. I want you to hear some of that. Let's start with cut 21, Christine. Cut 21. Now, remember, you had the state's closing argument, but in this jurisdiction, like many, many others, the majority actually in our country, the state has the burden of proof. So the state begins closing arguments, closing argument number 1. The defense comes second, and then the state has a final closing argument. They get the last word in nearly every criminal case, unless the defendant puts up no evidence other than his or her own testimony. That did not fit in this category, so Meadors got the last closing argument, and he made the most of it. Take a listen to our cut 21.
I don't know why he killed his wife and son. I don't have to say why. I think he did it to protect the one he loved the most. The one he really loved the most. So he could keep his lifestyle and not be embarrassed financially, and he wanted to keep going and loving Alex.
You are hearing Meadors lay it down in front of this jury. Bland, I agree with you. Kelly Skian with me, Fox Nation's senior producer. John Meadors by far exceeded all the other closing arguments. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think he put this case in layman's terms and said, look, this is common sense, and don't get distracted by the smoke and mirrors that Dick Harpootlian is so well known for. This is common sense. Alex Murdaugh lied about being at the scene, and therefore Alex Murdaugh is the only logical person that could have killed and did have motive to kill Maggie and Paul. And the only person that Alec loved more than Maggie and Paul was Alec.
Alex Murdaugh loved Alex Murdaugh more than anybody else. Go ahead, Bland.
I'm telling you, the visual that he painted at the end, that both Maggie and Paul testified, and that Paul had the insurance policy to make sure his father would not lie in infamy about what happened in those murders. He did the video, and Maggie testified, yes, I was shot 5 times, but I made sure those shell casings were next to my body. And then, Bubba, I'm telling you, that's why you and I became lawyers, to feel it from the heart. He talked. He didn't read. It was from his bones, Nancy, from his bones.
You know, I really admired that about his closing. He was not looking at his notes and flipping pages. He was telling it like it is. And there toward the end, and I want to go to you on this, Dr. Michelle Dupree. One thing he said was that he would still be lying on the ground, hugging his son, trying to bring the son back to life. How could you do that and take pulse and go back and call 911 all in 20 seconds? You've been by Moselle. I agree with him, Dr. Michelle Dupree.
Nancy, I agree with him also. And again, I do not know how at that critical incident, when you are right there the night of the murders, when you're being interviewed, how can you not tell the police everything that you know if you're innocent? You want these people or this person found. And Alex didn't do that. Instead, he made up a lie.
You know, that's another thing that John Metters hit, and he hit it hard in our cut 18, exactly what Dr. Michelle Dupree just said. Christine, could you play our cut 18?
I find it offensive that the defense, through the defendant, who was also a part-time solicitor, is claiming that law enforcement didn't do their job. Listen to me, please. Didn't do their job while he is withholding and obstructing justice by not saying, I was down at the kennels. I was down at the kennels. I was down at the kennels. And he's going to blame everybody else. Is that offensive? Is that offensive? Mr. Griffin said a minute ago, can you imagine coming up on the scene and seeing, can you imagine not telling law enforcement, lying that I was down there and I saw him, I was right there? Why wouldn't you tell them that? Maybe get some more evidence. Did you hear somebody? No, I wasn't even down there. Credibility, believability. That really does sum it up.
I'm telling you, the way Metters laid it in front of the jury, I do not see how they could turn away from his closing arguments. Also with me, Kelly Skian. Kelly, Fox Nation senior producer, throughout the defense's closing argument, most of the jurors seemed stoic. They were not really responding to the defense, except for one lady that we call the blanket lady, because I've seen her pull her blanket up to right here, during the courtroom. You've seen her pull it all the way up over her head. I was very surprised she wasn't taken off the jury when that happened. But that said, I saw her nodding up and down vigorously during the defense closing statement.
Yeah, I saw her as well. It looked like she was hanging on to every single word of those closing arguments by Jim Griffin. Other jurors had their, they were looking stoically at Jim Griffin. I did see one who wasn't even looking at him at all. It's really hard to tell what the...
Okay, I'm going to bring this up really quick. From what this is what I found about the juror that was removed today. So the juror removed from Alex Murdaugh's murder trial for talking about case to friends. If you're watching the trial earlier, the judge even said that they had to go and find the friends to interview them to make sure that that person was truly, in fact, talking about the case. So it says a juror was removed from the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial Thursday morning after the juror learned she had been talking about the case to her friends. Alex Murdaugh is accused, and then just says that, fatally killing his son. Ahead of the defense's closing argument on Thursday, Judge Newman informed the court that he had received a complaint from a member of the public indicating that the juror had improper conversations with parties not associated with the case. The juror denied it when confronted about the issue. In the chambers at the Colton County Courthouse in Waterboro on Tuesday, 3 witnesses were interviewed on Wednesday, which revealed that the juror had offered her opinion on the evidence presented in the trial to at least 3 people, the judge said. In order to preserve the integrity of the process and the interest of both the state and the defense in the fair trial, the juror will be removed and replaced by another juror. Both the state and the defense were in agreement with the order. Newman informed the juror that he concluded she had discussed the case intentionally or unintentionally with people not in the jury despite his order not to, and that he was required to remove her from the jury. So that's the little article that I was talking about that I found. When I just looked up what the juror, I Googled who did the jury and the Alex Murdaugh trial talk to? Like, it wasn't even a good way to, like, I didn't even word that very well. So I don't know that, but that's what came up. So I'll go ahead and play Nancy again. And if you guys have any more questions, let me know and I can try to look them up since we're sitting here.
Jury is thinking at this point, especially after the major shakeup this morning where another juror was dismissed. So they've spent 6 weeks together and they are just dropping off like flies. And now we have one alternate juror left.
To Eric Bland, speaking of the jurors, what is your understanding of what this lady juror did to get thrown off the jury?
She evidently told somebody who reported it to Judge Newman that she made up her mind. Now, I don't know whether she said, on innocence or guilt, but it's completely unacceptable. It is someone who
I can totally tell you what she said.
What did
you were
she
in the
say?
courtroom with me, Bland, sitting right behind me, because when they threw her off the jury, the state went, okay. And the defense said, well, I don't like it because this and this and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, she was pro-defense, or the defense would not have been squawking and clucking about the courtroom when she got thrown off.
Correct. I just don't want to impugn somebody's character, but I am upset that, they didn't listen to the judge.
Wait a minute. You think it's impugning her character that she was pro-defense?
No, I'm just saying I don't want to hammer somebody. I'm upset that the jurors are not listening to this judge. This judge has given his time. He has been as even temperamental as you can imagine. He hasn't bitten anybody's head off. He hasn't fallen asleep. He hasn't tried to take over the courtroom. You've had judges who take over a courtroom, start asking questions. This guy, from a Solomon-like wisdom standpoint, has been great. And I think, he was joking about the eggs and all. But in his heart, I think he was upset. He doesn't want this jury to be jeopardized any further.
I think he was upset too, because we're now down
Nancy,
to one alternate. And
that's scary.
Go ahead, Eric.
Nancy, don't forget, 2 months ago at the Russell Laffitte trial that I was at in federal court, Judge Gergel had to remove 2 jurors from the deliberations in the middle of deliberations because of one said that she refused to deliberate any further, and another said that she was getting anxious and felt her health was at risk. Listen, that could be what we're going to see in here, and we need 12 jurors. Remember, can't compromise and do an 11-person jury in a murder case. It's got to be 12 by the Constitution.
Back to Kelly Skin. Kelly, when the lady juror left, the judge asked her in open court, well, what do you have left in the jury room? And she said, well, my purse and my water, and I brought a dozen eggs in, or a dozen eggs for the jury. And he says, okay, to the sheriff, go get that for her. And she said, I want to take my eggs with me. So she took her water, her purse, and her eggs. So that was a little levity in the courtroom when she wanted to take the eggs back that she had brought for the jurors. But I could tell she was upset, and I could tell the judge does not like losing yet another juror.
Nancy, what did you think of the defense?
She was brought in.
That was to Kelly Skehan. You are not Kelly Skehan, Bland. Go ahead, Kelly.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay.
So she did. She told the judge she left a dozen eggs that she had brought in for the jurors from her farm, her purse, and her water in the chambers, and which she was not allowed to go back into once she was dismissed. She was brought downstairs. I went downstairs. She looked very shaken, almost embarrassed. And I think something that's really important here is she lied about it. When she was asked if she had discussed the case, she said no. And we had to, in effect, have another trial within the trial to get to the bottom of this, where they brought in 3 different people, got them on the record, and said, no, this woman did give an opinion about the case. The judge said, look, I know it's probably really hard to stay away from media coverage for this case, but bottom line is you broke my rules. I can't budge on that. You got to go.
Yeah, I could tell she was embarrassed when she left. Guys, another very odd statement was made during the defense closing argument. Attorney Griffin was talking about, was Alex Murdaugh still home when his wife and son were murdered? And Griffin says, I don't know. Maybe he was. Okay, that's not a good look for Murdaugh. being there when Maggie and Paul were murdered. But that is what the defense said. Take a listen to our cut 17. This is defense attorney Griffin arguing to the jury.
So we do know from the timeline that Alec left the property at 9:07. Were they killed before he left? I don't know the answer to that. But we do know that if he was in the house when the shots were made down at the kennel, that he would not have heard them.
Yeah, right. Okay, I've been saving this moment for Joe Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet, and star of Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan podcast. Okay, Joe Scott, could you believe your ears when you heard the defense place their client at Moselle when his wife and son are murdered at Moselle? Not hear the gunshots. My rear end, of course you could hear those gunshots.
Of course you could. You're talking about a high velocity round, multiple high velocity rounds coming out of this 300 blackout. Not to mention, if anyone has ever heard the report of a 12 gauge shotgun, not just once, but twice, Nancy, we know that. We have that confirmed. You got to be living under a rock. And there's no way acoustically that you could not appreciate that sound, the crack of that rifle. That rifle, it fires a supersonic round. That means that it breaks the sound barrier as it's exiting that muzzle. There's no way you could not have heard that. And people talk about the distance from the house down to that complex down there. It's not that far away. You could certainly hear them.
Nancy, you'd smell the gunpowder.
There's no question.
Nancy, it's urban warfare.
Yeah.
You would smell a little bit of gunpowder. I'm telling you.
But even if the defense attorney is arguing, which I think he was trying to, that Murdaugh was up in the house area of Moselle, that he would not have heard the gunshots as close as the kennel was to the home, that is just not true. Chris McDonough joining me, director at Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, and host of The Interview Room on YouTube. What about it, Chris McDonough?
You know, I think Joe nailed it. There is no way that if he's down there, which we know he is because the kennel video, that, you know, you have 7 shots going off, 2 from the shotgun and, you know, another 5 from the AR or the blackout. You know, that sound travels forever in that area. I mean, I went out there and stood there on the street. It was so quiet in the middle of the day. It even gets worse at night. And so there's no way he didn't hear those gunshots go off.
Nancy?
You know, Christine, I want to, hold on, Eric. I just want Christine to show something while you're talking.
Sure.
I want to get, thank you for the video, number one, Christine. But I'd like to get to where the dog kennel is and the feed room. Just keep playing it because we're going to get to it. Because I don't believe that all of those structures even have walls. Some of them are more like pavilion, like right, that's it. See, right there, that's a pavilion type atmosphere. And if the gun was fired in that area, there's not even a wall to protect the sound. Now, that is definitely inside right there. Oh, okay, what were you saying, Eric?
I have represented homeowners that reside near gun ranges, and we've sued them over public nuisance. I've had 2 of those cases. And I've had experts come in, and we've had the judge come out and on site listen to these gunshots go off.
Hey, Eric, look at your screen. Look at your screen. Do you see that? That's what I'm talking about. They were not even walled in.
Right.
And now inside, right in there, yes.
High-powered deer rifle arsenal travels the sound for 2 miles, Nancy. 2 miles, not just 900 feet, 2 miles.
I was just wondering if any of the jurors actually are falling for the theory that no one would hear the gunshot. I mean, Joe Scott Morgan, I'm not talking about a little 22. I'm talking about a high-powered 300 blackout and a shotgun, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would. And here's something else you kind of have to factor in, Nancy. Where was this jury pulled from? Remember that we're in a rural area. There are a lot of people that possess weapons and have been around weapons. They've been around weapons because a lot of people hunt, Nancy. People are familiar with the sound of weapons.
Yes.
And, I can imagine them sitting back and scratching their head thinking, oh, my God, you're saying you couldn't hear that? They've been out there now, Nancy. Remember? They took a bus ride yesterday.
It's a good point.
Guys, I want to hear that one more time. If you don't mind, Christine, could you play that one more time, Our Cut 17? Now, remember, this isn't the state. This is the defense attorney, Griffin, claiming, hey, he could have been there when they were murdered. Did he not understand what he was saying? Take a listen.
So we do know from the timeline that Alec left the property at 9:07. Were they killed before he left? I don't know the answer to that. But we do know that if he was in the house when the shots were made down at the kennel, that he would not have heard them.
Okay, now I want you to hear the response by the state, and this is John Metters arguing in Our Cut 20. Take a listen to Metters laying it down.
Maybe he just got angry. Maybe he got angry at Paul. Maybe he got angry, you started all this with the boat case. And maybe he just lost it. Maybe he just lost it. Maybe it looked like a suicide, and then Maggie came, and he had to shoot her. I don't know. Only one person knows. And that's why we've got the motive. That's why we say he did it. But we don't even have to have motive. Just angry, he did it. Nobody else could have done it. Nobody else did do it. I'm going to get to that, and that's how we prove beyond.
And of course, it was never overtly argued, Kelly Skin, Fox Nation senior producer, that if he didn't do it, who did? That was not actually argued, but it's really clear from Metters' argument that that's what he's saying. He's the only one that could have done it. I mean, think about it. Who else could have done it, Kelly? These spirits, the specter that was on the internet and became angry over the boat crash and then sought vengeance by killing not just Paul, but Paul and Maggie. And wow, darn, Murdaugh just missed it by an instant. I mean, according to Metters, Murdaugh would have had to have passed the killer going down the driveway. I mean, Christine, could you show an aerial of Moselle, that long sweeping driveway that goes up to the home and the kennels and the gunshot range? I guess they passed each other en route, Kelly.
Well, yeah, Nancy, and we heard another theory from Jim Griffin today that maybe it was Alec's drug dealer. Maybe Paul Murdaugh found the person who was supplying Alex Murdaugh's drugs, confronted them, said, please stop selling drugs to my dad. Griffin alleged that this person was part of a very dangerous gang down here, and that gang then retaliated by killing Maggie and Paul. At the same time, if that shooter would have had to know that Maggie and Paul were at the kennels at that exact same time and hope that Alex Murdaugh wouldn't find them killing his wife and son. We also heard today Jim Griffin explain away Alex Murdaugh's lies as, quote, just misstatements, and saying, quote, that Alex Murdaugh, it's irrational for him to kill, but throughout this entire trial, we have heard from the defense themselves that Alex Murdaugh was irrational because of his addiction.
Nancy. Well, exactly. Nancy. I want you to listen to Cut 14. That is exactly what Kelly Skin just described. Listen.
Another curious point in Mr. Waters' closing argument yesterday involves Paul's intuitive talents. You will recall that Alex informed agents that Paul was an intuitive little dude, referred to him as a detective. That Miriam Proctor, Maggie's sister, said that Maggie referred to Paul as his little detective, her little detective. and particularly when it came to trying to root out whether Alex was still doing drugs. And then he just sort of left it there. For you to then take it and run with it as if Paul must have found Alex using drugs. There must have been a confrontation down there at the kennel, and that must have been what happened. Now he didn't go that far in his argument, but he laid it out there for you to run with. But that was clearly the implication. Let me add another scenario that's equally as plausible. What if Paul the detective learned the source of drugs that were being sold to his dad? What if Paul the detective goes to that drug source? That's my dad, you're in my family. And if you don't, I'm going to tell on you, turn you in.
A drug gang? I'm going to
Nancy.
tell on you. Where
Nancy.
did that come from, Bland? What?
Nancy, a drug gang has their own guns, Nancy. They don't come to kill somebody and hope there'll be guns in the house that they could steal and then shoot you with them. They have their own weaponry, and they don't use long rifles. They use guns, and they come up and they shoot you with a handgun. It is preposterous to posture the fact that these people came to kill Paul and Maggie with no guns. That's just insulting.
Exactly, Nancy. That's a crazy idea.
Dr. Dupree, go ahead, Dr. Dupree.
So I totally agree with Eric Bland. That's a crazy idea. In addition, if you'll remember one of the interviews, Alex actually said, no one else was here. He was asked, were the dogs misbehaving, as if there was an unknown person or persons around. He said, no, they were not. What does that tell you?
Nancy, there's one more salient point here.
Go ahead, dear.
Yeah, there's one more point here. Remember what Metters, when he was bringing down the thunder in his closing there, he mentioned that the FBI had gotten involved helping SLED. What you're implying, not you, but what they're implying here is that this is an organized crime event relative to the FBI is already involved. They would have sussed this out. They would have gotten the DEA involved in this as well. There's been no evidence of that. So that's something that, as they say in the lowlands, that dog won't hunt.
Guys, I want you to take a listen now to our cut. Oh, yeah, I want to hear it. Go ahead, Chris.
So you lay it out there and let them run with it was the word of the day, because Alex has been doing that from day one. And remember the interview in the car where he introduced the idea of the cat or I may have seen them come onto the property. I'm not really sure about that. So this narcotic hit now is just, again, another fabrication.
Guys, I was waiting for the defense to address the big lie about why he lied that very night, not when he was paranoid or afraid of SLED, but in the 911 call, Alex Murdaugh had already formulated a lie, removing himself from the dog kennels. Kelly Scan, I really thought you were going to fall off your seat in the courtroom when defense attorney Griffin said he lied to avoid scrutiny on himself. Describe that moment, Kelly.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. He lied to avoid media scrutiny, he lied and then in turn found himself in the middle of media scrutiny and a murder investigation. It just doesn't make sense. And it's yet another example of the ever-evolving story from Alex Murdaugh's defense team of what happened that night. Was he home? Was he not home? What is their story here? I don't even know if the jury is following, but all they really have to do is plant that one seed of reasonable doubt, and I do think that that's their strategy, confusion.
Take a listen to our cut one.
They didn't have this kennel video until April of 2022, when Paul's phone was finally unlocked, and that changed everything. Opportunity. Being at the scene of the crime when the murders occurred. And more importantly, exposing the defendant's lies about the most important thing he could have told law enforcement. When was the last time I saw my wife and child alive? Why in the world would an innocent, reasonable father and husband lie about that? And lie about it so early? And he could always say, well, Rogan must be mistaken. I'm surprised. Not if my times are right, was what he said. Why would he even think to lie about that if he were an innocent man?
Okay, now here is how the defense countered that. Their response to the big lie in our cut 12. Listen carefully to how they explain it away in closing arguments. Listen.
We're left with the lie. Alex lied about being down at the kennels, and frankly, I probably wouldn't be sitting over there right now. He had not lied. And he told you why he lied. He said he lied because that's what addicts do. He lied because he had a closet full of skeletons, that he didn't want any more scrutiny on him, which is the most ironic thing in the world, because depending on which day of the week, their theory is that he slaughtered his wife and son to distract from an impending financial investigation. But he puts himself in the middle of a murder investigation, and he puts himself in the spotlight of a media firestorm. That's their motive evidence. He lied because of his drug paranoia kicked in, and he was clearly in the throes of addiction. What he didn't lie for is because he was covering up the fact that he killed Maggie and Paul.
Joe Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, you and I have seen a lot of cases, but to say a loving husband and a loving father, of course the jury never got to hear about the affair he had behind Maggie's back, but that every time they said in court today about how much he loved Maggie and how he worshiped Maggie and adored Maggie, all I could think about was him having that affair and how upset she was till the day she died about that. But that said, Joe Scott Morgan, to say I lied about the last time I saw my child and wife alive to avoid scrutiny on myself. I mean, did the jury get that, do you think? How ridiculous that is?
Yeah, it is absurd. And this idea, Nancy, where they're falling back, that he's an addicted person, that he's literally a junkie. And this has come down, it's come down to this now. That this is your defense. This is the best that you have. You're saying that he's so addled at this point in time, he has no perception of what's going on. And, either it's one way or it's another.
Correct.
Is this what you're saying? So you being addicted has led to all of these lies, but yet it's a bridge too far to think that, yeah, you may have gone in there and slaughtered your family. Okay, well, you've got lie after lie after lie. And look, they have talked about that they don't have to prove motive. You've taught me that over all of these years. I know that they don't. But when you begin to piece this together, point by point by point on this continuum, it's powerful stuff. And it comes to this conclusion at the end that's staring everybody in the face, certainly that jury, as they're going to go back into that little room together.
And Nancy,
hey, guys, I want to hear it one more time. Go ahead, Dr. Dupree.
So we're forgetting something. Alex never thought he would get caught. That's one reason he lied. He never thought he'd be caught. He is too smart to get caught.
You're leading me to another point, Dr. Dupree. No matter where I have been, at the Mexican restaurant last night, in the lobby of the hotel where we're staying, here at the courthouse, I mean, at Walmart, the gas station, everywhere I have been, somebody comes up and says, I'm from Colleton County. My dad knew this one, my sister this, my cousin, all connected to the Murdaughs. They have run this county for 100 years. I don't know if they're going to run this jury too, but you're right, Dr. Dupree. He never thought he would get caught. He never knew that his voice was captured on that video. That video is damning. I want you to hear, again, the defense trying to explain why he gave the big lie. And I was writing in the courtroom, the defense explanation falls flat on the big question. Listen to cut 12.
We're left with the lie. Now, Alex lied about being down at the kennels, and frankly, I probably wouldn't be sitting over there right now. He had not lied. And he told you why he lied. He said he lied because that's what addicts do. He lied because he had a closet full of skeletons, that he didn't want any more scrutiny on him, which is the most ironic thing in the world, because depending on which day of the week, their theory is that he slaughtered his wife and son to distract from a impending financial investigation. But he puts himself in the middle of a murder investigation, and he puts himself in the spotlight of a media firestorm. That's their motive evidence. He lied because of his drug paranoia kicked in, and he was clearly in the throes of addiction. What he didn't lie for is because he was covering up the fact that he killed Maggie and Paul.
You know, back to you, Joe Scott Morgan. Let's talk about something that you and Dr. Dupree, it's your expertise. Let's talk about blood. Because I realized for the first time when John Meadors said it, that's water I hear running in the background of that video. And he argued to the jury that right there, Alex Murdaugh used that hose to clean himself up totally. Not in the shower in the lodge at Moselle, but right there. And you do hear the water in the background of that video.
Yeah, I think that that's potentially plausible. You go into this idea of cleaning. You know, I've held, you know, one of the things I couldn't get past in this when people were talking about the house and this sort of thing, why didn't they take out the drain traps in the house to look for tissue? I'm not talking about blood, I'm talking about actual tissue, because think about how violent Paul's death was. And we've already heard about tissue. And I'm thinking, you know, that's one of the things we do at crime scenes. We take drain traps out, we look for bits of tissue and that sort of thing. Hadn't heard anything about that. But out there at that kennel, if you're rinsing off with a hose, there wouldn't be any drain traps to take apart. I'm wondering how well they searched that area, if there was anything particulate that they found out there that could be associated with him being present for that blast, essentially, you know, because Paul was in a very enclosed area. It wasn't kind of outside where Maggie was shot. So that tissue being dispersed upon him, it would have left something behind.
Just want to let everyone know if there's anybody new in the chat and they're like, what are they watching? Because we've heard there's a verdict. We are watching Nancy Grace. She was outside of the courthouse today. So this is her video from, I believe it'll be last night's video. So she's just kind of explaining what was going on during the trial then. They did have a verdict this evening. We did a live on that. He was found guilty of all the charges. So tomorrow, I believe I'm going to stream the sentencing as well. But I have a doctor's appointment, so it's going to be a little bit of a different live, I think. My doctor's appointment's at 9. The sentencing starts at 9:30. My appointment will be done till 10. So I may just start streaming it, and then I'll be in the chat. So we'll do something like that. Because you guys will have plenty to watch, because obviously they'll be doing the sentencing. So I'll go ahead and keep playing Nancy here. And if you guys could like the video, also, if you like the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
I think
Another thing that happened, and I'd really like to hear Dr. Dupree weigh in on this. In the final closing with John Meadors, he discussed how really the state is damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't.
Did you guys see her wrist? She had her Fitbit back on. I knew I was right. For having one eye, I have an eye for detail. I'm going to rewind this a minute, because you all saw her with that Apple Watch on yesterday. I saw it. You all saw it. Ashley even made a comment in this comment section saying, if it's Apple, of course, Tanya will know what it is, because I love Apple. But more importantly, I had a Fitbit 6 or 7 years ago before I got my Apple. So I'm like, I got an eye for detail. I'm wondering why Nancy's switching up her watches.
He described the blood evidence that
But you'll see her lift her wrist in just a second.
Was tested on Murdaugh's shirt, the one he was wearing, not the one that disappeared forever, but the one that he was wearing. At the beginning, it seemed initially that there were blood spatter. There was blood spatter on there. When it turned out that it was not, and that makes perfect sense because he changed into a clean shirt. The state did not try to present that. But then at trial, in closing arguments, the defense turned it around to pretend that the state had somehow misappropriated that evidence and used it against the defense. So they're damned if they make the test, and then they're damned if they don't bring that evidence in at trial.
Right, Nancy. And again, you know, this is why we do something. We do a presumptive test first and then a confirmatory test. And I'm not sure how this information got mixed up, but it did. And, you know, that's not a good thing. But the point is, you know, Alex could very easily have cleaned up right there with that hose at that time. You've already heard testimony that he has clothes all over. What if he had a change of clothes in his car and he cleaned up right then? It would be very easy to do. There had been witnesses that even said that he looked like he was fresh, he had a shower. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, the defense attacks the state, as I always describe it, when you've got nowhere to go and you're like a feral animal trapped in the corner. You have to lash out. You have to blame somebody. So who are they going to blame? A drug gang, a phantom killer, a random vigilante? None of that's really sticking. So you know what? Don't look here. Look here. Blame SLED. Blame law enforcement. It's all their fault. Take a listen in our cut 10, how the defense claims that SLED, quote, failed miserably.
On June 7th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh called 911, and Officer Deputy Green and then followed by other deputies rolled up on the scene. And he is standing on his property. His wife and son lie dead in a pool of blood each. He's within yards of him, and he just put shotgun down. So he's in the circle by virtue of calling 911. And that's fair enough. What doesn't strike us as fair is that the next morning on June the 8th, after the gruesome murders of Maggie and Paul, Colleton County and SLED that says, at this time, there's no danger to the public. Does that tell you that on June 8th, law enforcement had decided it had to be Alex Murdaugh? Forward, he is at the mercy. He is at the mercy of the ability of SLED to exclude him from that circle. We believe that we've shown conclusively that SLED failed miserably in investigating this case.
You know what, Chris McDonough, former homicide detective, now star of the Interview Room on YouTube, that's just part of the deal. That comes with the package of being in law enforcement, being a prosecutor. You are going to be attacked and you are going to be blamed no matter how well you do your job. Look, there is, in every case I tried that went up on appeal, I didn't have a single one where I wasn't accused of prosecutorial misconduct. At the first maybe 10 or 12 times, I would be so upset, I took it so personally. Then I figured it out. An older prosecutor in the office said, that happens on every appeal. It's not about you. That's what they do, and that's what's happening here. I mean, Chris McDonough, have you ever been accused of misconduct?
Oh, absolutely, Nancy. I mean, I've worked over 300 murders. I've worked over 300 murders in my career, and, 299 of them are perfect. And then there's that one, right, where you get hung out to dry here. I mean, I think for the very first time, Alec is being held accountable. And unfortunately, the only tactic they can use is to blame the other guy, i.e. SLED and the investigators and the system as a whole. But I think the system's going to work here. I love the state seal in Latin where it says, "While I breathe, I hope."
Well, that really hit home because just talking about it, Joe Scott Morgan, death investigator, you've been on so many homicide scenes. I mean, what was the state supposed to do? They see the T-shirt. It looks like there are blood spatters, very pinpoint spatters near the top. They have it tested. They were wrong. It wasn't blood, so they didn't use it. What are they supposed to do? Not test it because they might be wrong?
No, you have to test it. As a matter of fact, you have to exhaust every possible avenue that you have as an investigator. From a forensic standpoint, you collect everything that there is. And I don't care how long it takes. You know, I worked cases where we rode away from the scene with van loads, and I'm talking about multiple van loads of evidence where that have to be tested. You have to pursue everything. The biggest disappointment I think that I have in this case is this absence of weapons, though. But I think that there's an answer to that question, Nina. I find it fascinating when they talk about him going to his parents' home, you know, after the fact, you know, a week or so later, and he's taken out a four-wheeler or something like this. I'm wondering how thoroughly all of these properties have been examined. I'm wondering if there are old wells on these properties where those weapons could have been disposed of. Are they sitting at the bottom of an old abandoned well? Is there some other place they haven't looked? Those weapons are out there somewhere. They didn't just vaporize. So that's my one big thing. And I think that that's one of the biggest hurdles that jury's going to have to overcome. People want to see a weapon, and that's going to be one of the biggest sticking points.
You know, Dr. Michelle Dupree, we have gone and we've driven all around Moselle looking at how vast the property is. I think that one day, maybe not in our lifetime, but one day, somebody will find those weapons. They're out there waiting to be found. They've been hidden somewhere that only one person knows. And he's not talking, Dr. Dupree.
I think you're right, Nancy. I mean, this is 1,700 acres. Much of it is swamp. I mean, they could be literally anywhere. And you're right, there is only one person that knows where they are.
I just thought of this, but like, what if he hid them in the house somewhere? Like, I know that they checked the house from top to bottom, but I watched an episode of a show one time, and this cop was like doing some really bad stuff, and he had like something like above his garage, like it was hollowed out, and the officers didn't even know that it was there until they had looked at a certain angle and they could see the shutter was like a little detached or something. So I'm wondering if it's closer to than what people think, or if it's on the property across, because they spent a lot of time across the road. But if they had the weapon, they would have said it. So I don't know why they were over across the road. I'm still wondering that. Oh, maybe I'll play it. There we go.
Dr. Dupree, I was just talking about with Chris McDonough, how many times when a defendant has nowhere to go, nothing to argue, they begin blaming the cops. The cops did this, the cops did that. Hey, it worked in O.J. Simpson. The jury actually fell for it. As a medical examiner, I mean, I was thinking about Dr. Reamer, who did such a fantastic job and was just really just burning brilliant. It just oozed out of her. But I could see her getting upset and defensive when she was being attacked. That doesn't feel good for anybody in law enforcement. When you give it your all and then you're accused of misconduct or doing a sloppy job. What, did they want the state not to test the shirt? Because now they're getting reamed out because the shirt was negative and the state didn't bring it in.
Nancy, I think this is really a great example of what we call that CSI effect. And I saw it when I was a detective, and I've seen it as a medical examiner. The jury watches TV, and they expect everything to work the way it does on television, and it just doesn't. Every time I testify, nearly every time, I look straight at the jury and I say, this is how it's really done. It's not like on TV. And then I proceed to explain what the real situation is.
We also saw Kelly Skian, the attack on police, saying that they identified Murdaugh as a suspect at the beginning. And I remember right at the beginning when SLED released a statement, Kelly, and you and I talked about it at the time, stating the public is not in danger. And you and I said, wow, they must think it's Murdaugh. So that part is true. But on the other hand, you've got two people singled out in a remote location, killed execution style, riddled with bullets, no rape, no sex attack, no robbery. So they were singled out. They were targeted. And because the victims were targeted, that means that the general population is not at risk. But, you know, the defense did have a heyday with that big, huge poster of the press release saying the public is safe, don't worry. Remember that in closing arguments?
I remember that, and I have a list of the things that SLED would have to manufacture here. So they would have to manufacture the fact that these murders were done with family weapons. They would have to manufacture Alec's own alibi, and they would have to manufacture the fact that Alec lied about turning over the bodies before calling 911. So another thing I think that we're also seeing here is Alex Murdaugh's influence in this town is actually helping the defense possibly. We even heard that while the police had a search warrant that they could execute at Moselle to search the house, they didn't do that. They offered to put the badge away. So I think his influence impacting the investigation is actually possibly helping the defense here because they are using that to paint SLED as sloppy.
And of course, the defense hammered the theory. Go ahead, doctor.
So again, every time we have such a targeted hit like this, which is what this was, yes, the person who finds them or who calls 911 is going to be someone that we're going to be interested in. And just because we believe that the public is no longer at risk doesn't mean that we are singling out and having what we call tunnel vision, only looking at one suspect. You can have that, but still not just focus on one.
Nancy, can I add some clarity to that as well?
Sure, please do.
What Dr. Dupree is talking about. So that's what we call the victim risk continuum. And what that means is if you take an L, for an example, and on this side you have environment, situation, circumstance, then you have low, medium, or high risk activity. If everything starts going to the low risk based on the environment, situation, and circumstance, that means this was a targeted event, i.e. the statistics tell us that this individual who committed these crimes is familiar with these victims and knew and had some type of, a relationship with the victim. If you go to the other spectrum, then that is a stranger event. So everything told these investigators that night that it was definitely somebody close to that environment. And that's where they came up with the terminology within the circle.
Guys, I want you to hear where the defense will not let go, and I completely understand it, the theory of two shooters. Take a listen to our cut 16.
The most common sense thing here is there were two shooters. Because there were two guns, and as Mr. Palmbach said, one gun is high capacity, holds 10, 20, 30 rounds. And if you're going down to execute somebody, one gun's enough. Why take another gun that only has 3 shots? And Dr. Kinsey agreed with the angle coming out of the quail pen, so that the angle puts it pretty far away from the door of the feed room where Paul's killed. But it's not our burden. It's not our burden. It's their burden to prove to you, based on circumstantial evidence, that all the circumstances are consistent with each other and point conclusively to the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And those facts are just not consistent.
Joe Scott Morgan, what do you make of the two-shooter theory?
Well, I think that one of the things that they're arguing here is, and certainly I've thought about it, is that why in the world would you employ two long arms? You know, in the military, you carry a primary weapon like an M4 carbine, and you have a sidearm. And you see our troops transition. You see law enforcement do this as well from one to one. I think that their crime scene reconstructionists that they had, they being the defense, argued that it would be very cumbersome. Actually, it's not. If the individual is wearing what's referred to as a tactical sling on this 300 blackout, you could chest carry that very easy and still operate this 12 gauge. Also, he's got control over this property. He can sequester weapons anywhere he wants to and utilize them. Here's the rub for the defense, and they're not addressing this, is that if you want to try to make something look like that there are two shooters, why not employ two weapons that would give you the thought that, hey, you know, we've got two weapons that are very difficult to manage technically. You have to bring them to your shoulder to fire them. It seems rather cumbersome. Well, it's the perfect scenario for that. So, you know, you have to calculate all of this. Again, I think the jury, I don't know at this point, you had mentioned how you understand why they're pursuing it. And I understand that too, because if there's one point that the jury could potentially hang up on, it's going to be the two-shooter theory. Is it possible that this could have been perpetrated by one person? And it can be difficult to prove.
Exactly, Nancy. And remember, I think that this is Alex's attempt at what we call forensic countermeasures. He knows, he's very smart. He knows that this is going to potentially throw off the investigation, and that is exactly why someone would do that.
Well, I always compare it to, you have a fork in one hand and a knife in the other. Nobody has a problem with that. An experienced shooter will have no problem with two guns, especially if you employ a sling. And seasoned hunters use slings. They don't tromp through the woods holding the guns in their hands. They use a sling. I find it very hard to believe that Murdaugh didn't have a sling. I want you to hear what I thought was possibly one of the strongest arguments by the state in its final close today. It's our cut 22. And of everything I have heard in the courtroom from the beginning, Meddar's closing was by far the best, hands down. Take a listen to our cut 22.
You know, it's something else I don't understand. Your wife and your son have just been killed, and you're worried about having a lawyer around? Everybody said, well, you know, they're just sled agents. We need to have a lawyer around. Really? My wife and son have just been butchered, and I'm worried about having a lawyer? From the alibis that he's created, that he's doing. And he says, I went and ran. I got on my knees over here. Went and ran, and I tried to take the pulse of Paul. I'd still be on the ground arguing my son. And I tried to turn him over. I kept trying to check his pulse. Really? I went to Maggie, checked her pulse, and you can't do that in 20 seconds.
Wow. You know what? To you, Chris McDonough, that says it all. The way he laid that out about if he found his son lying there dead, what he would do.
Yeah, Nancy, I mean, it's, you know, I come from living in it, you know, with authenticity. As you know, I lost my son who was 20 years old, and I can't tell you what it felt like that day. But I can tell you this, I didn't call a lawyer, nor would I ever call a lawyer at that moment. And he not only called one, he called his firm. He had a firm of lawyers show up that night at the death of his family. I think he nailed it in the closing.
I got to tell you something, Chris. I thought I knew it all about grief and mourning when my fiance was murdered shortly before our wedding. But now that I have John, David, and Lucy, I agree with you. I don't think I could even think about calling a lawyer after seeing my child lying there dead. Straight back out to you, Kelly Skin. I think at that moment, the courtroom just came to a stop when Meadors made that argument.
I agree. And I think also the fact that up until this point, we have heard how gruesome these injuries are. So Alex Murdaugh saw his own son's brain on the ground and then decided to still check for a pulse. I think a lot of this stuff is just not adding up.
And more ironic, seeing his son like that and then thinking, wow, I better call a lawyer. I don't want scrutiny on me, so I'll just lie about it. So much has happened in this courtroom behind me. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe Scott.
Nancy,
Called the lawyers.
Yeah, I got to tell you, one of the things that absolutely has amazed me about this whole process that no one has really talked about relative to Alex. We've heard about how powerful his family is. I want to know why on the day after he wasn't standing out on those court steps and there would have been an endless bank of microphones in front of him with cameras, people that he had summoned with all of this power that this family is supposed to have, that he would have been slobbering and crying and wailing, begging for people to come forward, help me solve this double homicide where my family has been butchered. Remember, he witnessed this the night before. That's not what happened. I never saw that. I never saw anybody screaming at the top of their lungs, getting up on the rooftops and shouting out, where in the world is this killer? They're running around the countryside out here. We've never had anything like this happen. Where's the horror? Where's the terror? You know, where is it? Because I got to tell you, my family, I'd want blood. I would want them. I would want that person. I would want to drag them through the streets in the city. I would want to know that my community was safe and that I was going to have justice for my wife and my son. That never happened.
And he did.
Guys, the judge is about to charge this jury with the law by which they are to judge the facts of the case. This will be the judge reading the black and white letter of the law, and then this jury finally begins jury deliberations. Thank you for being with us. We're headed straight back into the courtroom for the jury charges. Goodbye, friend.
Okay, so I wanted to get that out for you guys because that was the last, last Nancy Grace podcast, that she'll do for Alex Murdaugh. I'm assuming this is the last one. I think she might have one more up her sleeve because, sentencing's tomorrow. So we'll have to see what she thinks about the sentencing when it happens. But I think I'm going to do a afternoon live tomorrow. So if you guys are available around 12:15, I will be on live. But I am going to jump off of here kind of early tonight. Usually I stick around and I'll chit chat for a little bit, but it's late and I do have a doctor's appointment super early in the morning. So I am going to get off of here, but thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys could like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys all on the next live. And I'll just let you guys know I did upload like 2 pre-recorded videos today if you want to check those out. And I have one coming out early in the morning as well. So I'll see you guys in the morning. Bye guys.